you're going to do a great job. Head, heart, and gut. You know, sometimes when I get up to speak, I have butterflies in my stomach too, and that regenerate into adrenaline.
We're going to table it.
Okay.
We're going to table it. The agenda's just too long.
Which thing is this?
We're going to table Sodexo.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. We're going to table the Sodexo report. I just think this one's going to be too long.
Okay. Yeah. Well, we got to make sure we get them on online. Thanks, Ray.
Of course.
Yeah.
I always think you do.
You're going to do the mental health.
I hear you.
George,
Yes.
you want to wait until we get online? Oh, it is on. Okay. All right, so we'll wait until the screens, and then I'll have.
No, we didn't want to
to
peek.
I'll let them go first, but I want to make sure everybody, they see it. Yeah, they see it. Okay. Okay. Thank you. We are. Okay. Good evening. We'll call the meeting to order. This is student representatives. For the record, school committee man Josiah Gonzalez. His daughter is a bit under the weather, so he's home being a good dad. And Josiah, I hope your daughter is feeling well. He is going to be on remotely. So with that, and it's great because South End Middle School is in the house, and they're here with Principal Yara De Palma Gonzalez, who's done a great job down there, and Aubrey Brooks, 8th grade, and is it Aubrey Brooks and Imani Torres, 8th grade? Yep, that are here to speak. So, Madam Principal, I don't know if you want to say a few words first, and then you can introduce your students. Great to have you down here, too.
Good evening.
Oh.
Good evening, Mayor Sarno, Superintendent Warwick, school committee members. My name is Yara De Palma Gonzalez. I am the proud principal at South End Middle School, Year 2. I am excited to introduce you to Imani Torres, 8th grader, and Aubrey Brooks, also an 8th grader, two amazing student leaders in our building, and they are going to be sharing all of the exciting things that we have been doing at South End. I heard them practice this afternoon. I'm excited for you to hear what they have to say.
Very good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, South End community members, Superintendent Warwick, administrator, and honored guests. My name is Imani Torres. I am an 8th grade student at South End Middle School.
I'm Aubrey Brooks, and I'm also an 8th grade student at South End. We are here to tell you about all the exciting things happening at South End Middle School. We made some changes and grew some new programs last year, which continue to evolve and make school more interesting and fun.
I'm most excited about playing sports and meeting the new students coming to South End.
I'm excited to begin band and student advisory council.
I participate in both sports and clubs at South End and have enjoyed both. Last year I played volleyball and basketball. I had fun practicing in the school with my friends. We visited other middle schools for games that played our home games at the South End Community Center. Our team was happy to see teachers, staff, and even the principals standing in the stands cheering us on at each of our games.
We also field soccer and volleyball games during the year. We had a lot of fun in band through our partnership with the community music school. I enjoyed playing a concert in the spring and 3 times over the summer.
In the way of clubs, we have art, mock trial, band with the community music school, and new literature and field club. We are both involved in the Student Advisory Council at South End. This group represents student views, leads events for other students, and provides leadership in our school committee.
I learned a lot by running games in our school carnival and being support staff for last year's 8th grade step-up ceremony at the Basketball Hall of Fame. The Advisory Council also brought back dances at South End, and we helped plan, decorate, and clean up after all the fun.
8th grade Step Up is a perfect example of the exciting new elements at South End. This one made possible through our partnership with MGM, who's helped make last year more exciting and interesting for everyone in the building. We are big fans of the head chef. Other examples include a fun new advisory curriculum and even daily period for math and reading enrichment. I enjoy how fun the teachers and staff are, especially my favorites, Mr. Tees and Mr. Muffin.
It's nice to know that I have adults in my home and in my school that I can go to for help and just to check in. My go-to adults are Miss Christian and Miss Guy. They run fun clubs and let you know that they are here to help. There's a lot happening at South End Middle School.
We are the Lions,
where the Lions roar. Respectful, on task, accountable, reflective, and safe. Thanks for having us, and have a great evening.
Oh, a duet. And could you tell me who the young men are behind you tonight? Who's them? My dad. Okay, hi, Dad. Your dad. It's great to have you both here, and your young lady, young man did a great job. Great job. Great job.
I really
Oh,
like
yeah.
it.
Yeah. Madam Principal, great job, and it's great to have you in person here. So go roar, South End Lions. Okay.
Thank you.
And as I indicated before, School Committeeman Josiah Gonzalez is on remotely because his daughter again is under the weather, and we hope she's feeling better. He's home being a good dad. So Zanetti Montessori is on the video screen, and supported by Melissa Ziaz, if I pronounce it wrong, correct me, digital literacy, computer science, and of course, Principal Tara Christian Clark, Amaya Taylor, Catalina Moynihan. Ayan, come on down. Oh, okay. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. I didn't know if you wanted any introductions at all, and we'll go right from there.
Okay. Good evening. My name is Amaya Taylor. Today, as we come together to talk about digital learning, computer science, I just want to share my experiences with it and what it has taught me. So in my previous year of middle school, my 7th grade year, I can remember going and doing the gingerbread house project. Our assignment was to create a gingerbread house that had one servo and one sensor, and there are many key components to creating this project. I am someone who likes to get things done the right way and in order, so me and my group planned down how we'd break the project up so we could all participate. It took a lot of work, but it was still one of my favorite projects. I learned more about how to program microbits and work with servos. I learned how to code things properly and make them work together. But not only did I learn how to use technology, I learned how to work with people and speak up for myself. There were many times where I needed to reach out to my technology teacher, Ms. Seitz, to ask for help and guidance. After this, I learned that it was okay to ask for help and that it's not easy to do things on your own, especially when you were just learning something. This project also had helped me learn to communicate with my classmates and how to get things done together. It took each of us playing our role in helping each other to create the gingerbread house. This goes to say that digital learning and computer science is so much more than just learning how to work with technology, but it's about using your strengths and gaining new perspective and abilities to create and engage in digital learning and computer science. I hope you guys have a good evening.
Great job, Maya. Thank you. Catalina, Miss Moynihan, you're up.
Catalina isn't able to make it. She's having some trouble getting onto the Zoom link.
Oh, okay. Well, if she's able to get back on before we finish, we'd love to have her speak. So we'll do a last shout out when we finish up, okay?
Okay.
Thank you very much. So we'll circle back. Springfield Renaissance Middle School's in the house, supported by Derek Wright, who is the interim principal. And we have Brooklyn Harrison, grade 7, Jalen McIver, grade 8, Gaddy Manny Gizzi. If I pronounce it wrong, please correct me. So I'll turn it first over to Principal Wright, if you'd like to do an introduction, and then we'd love to hear from the students, please. Thank you.
We're currently running our open house where we have families in, so Mr. Wright is tied up with that, but you have Mr. Rogers here with Jalen and Gotti to talk to you guys. Thanks for having us.
Thank you, Mr. Rogers' neighborhood. We appreciate that. Very good. Okay, you like that, huh?
We need to get him a cardigan.
Yeah, you got him a cardigan, right. Go ahead, young men, you take it. It's all yours.
Good evening, Mayor Cerno, Superintendent Warwick, and other honored guests. Hi, my name is Jalen McIver. I'm in 8th grade and I'm at Springfield Renaissance School.
Hi, my name is Gadi Menegezi. I'm in the 8th grade and I'm in Springfield Renaissance School.
In crew, it's a safe place to talk with your crewmates and your crew teacher. And it's also a trustworthy place. And also you have break time. So if you have like trouble with like school and you need time for a break, you get to go on crew and talk to your crew teacher. And then when you go back to class, you'll be ready to learn. We also use crew to explore college and career pathways. In a crew, you have academic day, which is it's like oh yeah, when you get help in class. So you and your crew members go in class and you like work that's in math, ELA, science, and social studies. And you also have a SLFC, which means Student-Led Family Conference. And it's mostly you and your family comes into school or on Zoom and y'all talk about the classes y'all have and y'all just talk about like the things you learn and y'all grades. Also, you have also in crew, if you're in middle school, it's up to 6th through 8th grade. And if you do stay at Renaissance, you go from high school and it's 9th through 12th grade. And which leads to Adventure Ed.
Adventure Ed is a place or a field trip where you get to have fun and still learn. It's like school but outside, and you get to work with your classmates and having fun and learning how to like use teamwork and perseverance, one of our key community commitments. You also get to, like have teamwork. My experience with Adventure Ed was I went in the 7th grade and we had to split up into groups and we all of us had the same map and we had to learn about each other and then like skills that all of us can do and everything. So after that, we would go and meet at the spot that we were to, and it was really fun for me because I got to know all my classmates and what they can do and what I can do, and it showed a lot of our community commitments. It was really fun. And this year, now that I'm in 8th grade, we'll be going to Mount Tom, and that will also show another one of our key perseverance, courage, and that we have to like be courageous and pick our classmates up if they're not like feeling well or not doing too well. We just have to take care of them while we on the hike, and then we'll go back to school, and then we'll reflect on what we've done at Mount Tom, and it's just a really fun place that you could do. And my experience with crew is like I love crew. Like it's like to me, I actually only come to school for crew because it's really like fun. And my crew teacher is like one of the best because she's like my second like mom because she really helps me like when I'm in like if I'm not in the right mindset, she'll put me in the right mindset. And if I don't know what to do, she'll like tell me what to do and just like do everything for me.
Also in crew, you have crew parties, which will help you and your classmates get to know each other more. And you also, and that shows culture sensitivity, meaning you can bring food that you and your culture so that people can try. And also, you have crew competitions against the other crews in our grade. And we play like basketball, soccer, volleyball, capture the flag, and more. And I'm Jalen McIver from Renaissance.
I'm Gadi Manigezi from Renaissance.
And thank you for having us.
Gotti and Jalen, you guys did a great job, boy.
Thank you.
So you did a great job at Mr. Rogers' neighborhood. I mean, you guys are 1-2 punch there. That was very, very good. Great job, guys.
Good luck with your
Thank
open
you.
house.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
I hope you have a good evening.
You too. Thank you. We're gonna circle back, see if Catalina Moynihan from Zanetti Montessori is available. Messiahs?
No, I don't think she popped on.
Oh, she's on now?
No, I don't think she has.
Okay, all right, we'll try to circle back again. Now we'll go to STEM Middle Academy, and supported by Roberto Ortiz, acting principal. And I think an old friend of mine is on here tonight, Giovanni Bacterzero. You got to correct me, Giovanni. Leon Melendez-Aponte, Partika Pradhan, 7th grade, 8th grade, 7th grade. So we'll turn it over to acting principal Roberto Ortiz.
Good evening, Mayor Sarno and Superintendent Warwick and school committee members. Thank you for the opportunity to lead STEM Middle Academy. I'm super excited. Got some great kids, and we're going to do some great things this year. Today, I have the honor to introduce 3 of our students. Our first one up is Giovanni Vaquerizos, who will talk about his experience at STEM for the past 2 years. He wants to become a pilot for the Air Force and go to college for aviation and engineering. And for fun, he likes playing soccer and throw the football around. Giovanni, take it away.
Good morning, or good afternoon, everybody. Superintendent Warwick and Mayor Sarno.
Giovanni, I have to say it's great to see you. I met this young man at Frontera Grill.
Yes.
I was there with my wife, Carla. This was a while ago. And he came up and wanted to meet me with your mom and dad, and really taken by this young man and how he presented. He's going to be a pilot and just a tremendous young man. So, Giovanni, when I saw you were on, that was fantastic to have you on there.
Thank you. So, hello, I am Giovanni, a 7th grader here at STEM. What I have noticed about my time here so far is that most things you learn here are taught physically, meaning mostly hands-on activities. An example of this was in the 6th grade, when we collaborated with the 7th grade science class to create pyramids out of popsicle sticks. We also get graded from HOS, Habits of Scholarship, which is a score determining your behavior and effort. Here at STEM, we also enjoy doing many activities, such as sports, band, student council, and my personal favorite, the Right Flight Club. In that club, you're taught all about aviation and get to fly a plane at the end of the session. Luckily for me, I can do it this year, as this is only available for grades 7 and up. All teachers at STEM are also lots of fun to be around. Here at STEM Middle Academy, there really is something for everyone. Did I mention we have recess too? STEM really is the best. Principal Ortiz has really brought life back to STEM, from the way he checks on us in the mornings to the way he also is there for anything at any time. At the beginning of every day, along with the Pledge of Allegiance, we also do the STEM Pledge. The pledge consists of basic HOS, like being respectful, working towards excellence, and checking our work for accuracy. Thank you for everybody for listening.
Nice job, Giovanni. Say hi to mom and dad.
Yes. Thank you.
Good young man.
Yeah, thank you, Giovanni. Nice job, kid. Our next one up is one of our 8th grade students, and she's been here for the past 3 years and wants to go to school to become a lawyer.
Oh.
And is now a swimmer for the Springfield Sharks Community League. Leanne, your turn. Take it away, kid.
Hey, Leanne.
Hi, guys.
Hi, Leanne. How are you?
I'm great. How are you?
Good, thank you.
Okay. Hi, my name is Liam Melendez, and I am an 8th grader at STEM. Throughout the course of the 3 years I have been here, I have had many opportunities and experiences. The school has prepared me for the real world by being taught real-world experiences in class that have helped me outside in the real world, not just in school. STEM has activities such as band, sports, technology, science, and outside partners. That's what makes STEM better and different than other middle schools in Springfield. I'm in my 3rd year of band, and most of my classmates, including myself, have learned 2 instruments or are learning their 2nd instrument this year, and also know how to read music clearly. We also have student-led family conferences twice a year to show your parents your progress and how you're testing. Sports at STEM are soccer, basketball, and volleyball. We have great sports teams and coaches. The students at STEM are great at collaborating, which is one of the key components of playing sports. The coaches at STEM also have great communication skills, which is something that is taught at STEM. Technology is one of the STEM's biggest classes. There are many fun and hands-on activities that relate to real-world jobs that students might want to become. Science classes are very well taught and in-depth classes in STEM. Most projects are hands-on, working towards collaboration
If
and
we could have a little
problem-solving skills.
quiet in the hallway area so we can listen to the students, please. Thank you. Thank you, Attorney Phelps. Liam, that wasn't you, Leanne. You're all set. I'm sorry for the interruption. Want to make sure we hear you.
Okay. And problem solving skills. No question is a dumb question with the units taught as STEM. The science units are very difficult and advanced. Many questions will be asked and answered by the teachers with amazing answers. With the help of STEM, 4 students, including myself, were given the opportunity to stay at Boston College and experience college life this past summer. I feel like that has prepared me so much for real life and later on opportunities. It has also made me realize I do want to go to college, and that is what I want to do after high school. It has also opened my mind to the fact that different colleges offer different things. Not all colleges have the same courses and beliefs. But while at STEM, I have learned many life skills and like communication, collaboration, and coming up with new ideas. All of those are stated in the STEM pledge.
Nice
Thank you.
job, Leanne.
Nice job.
That's a great trip to BC. Principal Ortiz?
Yep. So our third student is another 8th grader who's been here for the past 3 years and wants to go to college to major in business management. Okay. And for fun, she likes hanging out with her family and friends.
Okay.
Pratika, it's your turn. Take
Okay,
it away.
Pratika.
Hello,
How are you, Pratika?
I'm good. How about you?
Good, dear.
Hello, my name is Pratika. I'm in 8th grade at STEM Middle Academy and I had joined the Right Flight program last year when I was in 7th grade. At STEM, students have the chance to learn about what aviation is, the Wright Flight brothers, and their experience in flight, the categories of aircraft, the structure of aircraft, the 4 forces of flight, and early controls. Axis of flight, longitudinal axis, the lateral axis, the vertical axis, utilizing controls, surfaces, weight and balance of the plane, and much more. Wrap-Up program was an incredible program by the Wright brothers. They learned that it revolutionized aviation and paved the way for modern air travels. Their textbooks introduced students to the history of aviation and the connection of science, technology, engineering, mathematics, and pursuing aviation careers. STEM focuses on inspiring students to realize their hopes and dreams, including becoming a pilot. Thank you for listening.
Nice job, Pratika. Thank you. Thank you, students, and thank you, Principal Ortiz. We're going to go circle back one more time. Catalina Moynihan, Zanetti Montessori, if she's able to get on. One last check.
She is here, but sadly she can't hear anything. So I can't seem to help her problem solve
Okay.
how to get it to work.
Well, Catalina, we look forward to hearing from you later on in the future. And big round of applause to all our student presentation tonight. Thank you very much. That concludes our student representative speak out. We'll be back in session in a couple of minutes, and we hope that you continue to view. Thank you so much. We'll be in recess for 2 minutes. George and Josue. Thank you. Good evening. We'll call the meeting to order. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Ms. Hurst? Attorney Murphy?
Present.
Mr. Gonzalez?
Mr. Gonzalez is remote. I hope your daughter is feeling better too, Josiah. He's home. Daughter's a little under the weather.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Collins?
Here.
Ms. Gresham?
Present.
Ms. Monroe Naylor? Present. Mayor Sarno?
Present. Can we all please rise for a moment of silence? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. We'll move to, and I know the superintendent will get an update on, we had a great MSBA visit with Harena School and Walsh School National Award today, but we'll go to approval of the minutes, September 7th, 2023, school committee meeting. Any questions or comments? Hearing motion by Mr. Collins, or second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Gresham. Roll call vote is required. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Ms. Hurst?
Yes.
Attorney Murphy?
Yes.
Mr. Gonzalez?
Yes.
Mr. Collins?
Yes.
Ms. Gresham?
Yes.
Ms. Monroe Naylor?
Yes.
Mayor Sarno?
Yes, one sufficient vote, this matter passes. Now we'll move to voting items. A is to approve Conservatory of the Arts field trip to Gillette Stadium, Foxborough, Mass., September 30th, 2023, running same day at 11 p.m. Superintendent Ward, please.
Yeah, you have the field trip form in your packet recommending approval. This is a gear-up trip for the conservatory. Ryan Kelly and Kathy Ortiz are available if anyone has any questions.
Yeah, maybe they can help the Patriots out a little bit, too. Any questions or comments? Yeah. Motion by Mr. Collins, or second?
Second.
Second by Attorney Murphy. Roll call vote is required. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Ms. Hurst? Yes. Attorney Murphy?
Yes.
Mr. Gonzalez?
Yes.
Mr. Collins?
Yes.
Ms. Gresham?
Yes.
Ms. Monroe Naylor? Yes. Mayor Sarno?
Yes, more than sufficient votes, this matter passes. Thank you. B is to approve Walsh School field trip to Redgate Farm in Ashfield, Mass. on October 4th, 2023, returning October 6th, 2023. And we're at the school early this morning. The kids are fantastic. Principal Vinnie Regan, they won a national award today, national award, building off a portrait of the graduate, and I'm sure Superintendent Warwick will speak during his report. But Superintendent Warwick, clarification,
Yeah,
please?
thank you, Mayor. Again, this is Redgate Farm. We run a lot of field trips to Redgate Farm every year, so recommend approval. And Vinnie Regan's here if you have any questions.
Any questions or comments? Hearing none, is motion on the floor. Motion by Vice Chair Naylor. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by everybody. Roll call vote is required. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Ms. Hurst?
Yes.
Attorney Murphy?
Yes.
Mr. Gonzalez?
Yes.
Mr. Collins?
Yes.
Ms. Gresham?
Yes.
Ms. Monroe Naylor?
Yes.
Mayor Sarno?
Yes, more than sufficient votes, matter passed. Thank you. C is to approve Putnam Academy field trip to Gillette Stadium in Foxborough, Mass. on September 30th, 2023, returning same day at 11 p.m. Superintendent Ward, please.
This is a gear-up trip also. I'm recommending approval. Staff is available if you have any questions.
Thank you, Superintendent Warwick. Any questions or comments? Hearing none, is a motion on the floor?
So moved.
Motion by Vice Chair Naylor, is a second.
Second.
Second by Ms. Hurst. Roll call vote is required. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Ms. Hurst?
Yes.
Attorney Murphy?
Yes.
Mr. Gonzalez?
Yes.
Mr. Collins?
Yes.
Ms. Gresham?
Yes.
Ms. Monroe Naylor?
Yes.
Mayor Sarno?
Yes, more than sufficient votes, matter passes. Thank you. D is to approve Springfield Central High School field trip to Gillette Stadium in Foxborough, Mass. And I know the football team couldn't help the Patriots, for sure. On September 30th, 2023, returning same day, 11 p.m. Superintendent Ward, please.
This is another gear-up trip, recommending approval. There is staff available if you have any questions.
Thank you, Superintendent Warwick. Any questions or comments? Hearing none, is a motion on the floor. Motion by Mr. Collins, or second? Second by Attorney Murphy. Roll call vote is required. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Ms. Hurst?
Yes.
Attorney Murphy?
Yes.
Mr. Gonzalez?
Yes.
Mr. Collins?
Yes.
Ms. Gresham?
Yes.
Ms. Monroe Naylor?
Yes.
Mayor Sarno?
Yes, more than sufficient votes, matter passes. Thank you. E is to approve high school science technology field trip to North Adams, Massachusetts on October 16, 2023, returning October 18, 2023. Superintendent Ward, please.
And this trip has to do with our Portrait of a Graduate work at the school, and Desiree Spingler and Michelle Balch are on. I wonder if they could give you a quick presentation on it.
Sure, come on up.
I think they're.
Oh, they're on, okay.
Zoom.
Come on online.
Hi, this is Michelle Balch. This is a portrait of a graduate. Deanna Sumala is going to be on the trip. She's also here tonight, and she could speak to the details of the trip, but we've invited the High School of Science and Technology to come with us, and it's a convening with other BAR Foundation grantees, and they come together. We learn from one another. It's centered around the work of the portrait of a graduate, and this particular field trip is supporting going to other school visits, and we will be looking at having students come with us to learn from what other schools are doing and their pathways programs that they're engaging in.
Thank you, Ms. Welch. Any questions or comments? Hearing none, is there a motion on the floor? Motion by Vice Chair Naylor. Is there a second? Second by Mr. Collins. Roll call vote is required. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Ms. Hurst?
Yes.
Attorney Murphy?
Yes.
Mr. Gonzalez?
Yes.
Mr. Collins?
Yes.
Ms. Gresham?
Yes.
Ms. Monroe-Naylor?
Yes.
Mayor Sarno?
Yes, more than sufficient votes, the matter passes. Thank you. F is to approve charter for Amaze Academy Charter School Superintendent
I
Ward.
think there's a naming of an administrative office, Mayor.
Oh, yes, I take it back. There's two agendas.
Yeah.
So, my apologies on that. This is an updated one. F is to approve bringing the matter of naming the administrative office suite at William N. DeBerry School in honor of family liaison Miss Maddie Jenkins to the Building and Maintenance Subcommittee for consideration. Superintendent Ward?
I think Barbara might want to present on this.
Ms. Gresham?
We wanted to name something at DeBerry and Swan for Maddie, and we found out the Media Center had already been named at Homer for another person. So, Barb, you want to take it from there?
Yes, thank you, Superintendent. So yes, most of us know Maddie Jenkins, and she's, as the mayor referred to her before, energized bunny. So
Yes,
she's
she is.
all around. She's got a good rapport with the parents and the students and the staff. So I think this will be a well-deserving honor for her.
Thank you, Ms. Gresham. Any questions or comments? Yes.
Doctor?
The Media Center at Homer School had been named after Mike Belize some years ago, and no one remembered, and we went through the notes, we found out that
Yeah.
that it had already been named for someone.
Mike
And in
Belize-
combining the two schools, they use the same media center.
Got it.
Mike-
So once we found that, we thought we better pivot and do something.
Mike Belize, God rest his soul, was very philanthropic, Belize Motor Sales, and he had passed away, and he was really great to our school system. So thank you for
It
that.
just confirms the process, Mr. Mayor, that going to a subcommittee, when you start to doing the research and you find these things out.
Yep.
So that no mistakes are made. And besides which, I think the office is probably even more appropriate.
Yeah.
Maddie spent her whole career in the office. It's kind of like Dolores Cornella up at Central.
Yeah.
So I think the office is probably even a better choice.
That's a great analogy with Dolores Cornella, God rest her soul. Exactly, and Maddie, same type of cloth there on it. So, any other questions or comments? And thank you, Ms. Gresham. for your-
Mr. Mayor, I just have one comment. This
Yes.
is Darcia Milner.
Yes.
Chief Schools Officer for Zone 1. I just want to say that I'm excited about this honor to Maddie Jenkins. She is the ultimate advocate for children and a great resource to the parents at DeBerry Elementary School.
Thank you, Ms. Miller, appreciate that. If there's no other.
I just like to add, sorry, that's my grandma, so this is awesome.
Well, that was the most important comment right there, okay.
Who is that?
If there's no other, is anybody's grandmother on here also, too? No? Okay. If there's no other comments or questions, is there a motion on the floor, please? Barbara?
Yes, motion.
Motion by Ms. Gresham, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Vice Chair Naylor. Roll call vote is required. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Ms. Hurst?
Yes.
Attorney Murphy?
Yes.
Mr. Gonzalez?
Yes.
Mr. Collins?
Yes.
Ms. Gresham?
Yes.
Ms. Monroe-Naylor?
Yes.
Mayor Sarno?
Yes, more than sufficient vote, this matter passes. Congratulations, madam. Okay, now G is to approve charter for Amaze Academy Charter School. Superintendent Ward, please.
Thank you, Mayor. We're bringing this before you tonight. This is not a Commonwealth charter, a Horace Mann charter application. So unlike Commonwealth charters, they have to be approved by school committee. And there's some differences with Horace Mann as in relation to Commonwealth charters. Horace Mann are done really in working with the district. The teachers become members of the teachers union with all the rights. And another caveat is that when you approve a Horace Mann charter, the city has to provide a building for the Horace Mann charter program. So those are some of the key differences. I'm going to let Tom come up and explain his program, and then we'll open it up for some questions.
Coach Guy, thank you, Tom. Thank you for your efforts with our kids.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening, Tom.
So on the subcommittee on Tuesday, I started with just explaining how this idea of this charter came about. Today, I want to start and just talk about the progression on when I decided to do it and who and when I reached out to certain people, certain leaders of this community and of this school district. The first person that I talked to about this was our principal at Central, Tad Tokars. He was an easy one to get connected with. I see him every day, and we had a good conversation about it, and I just want to let him know. This was something that when I decided to do it, I wanted to meet with people in person. I didn't think this was a phone call. I didn't think this was an email. I thought this was very important to sit eye to eye and have conversations with people. After meeting with Mr. Tokars from Central, I emailed the superintendent. The superintendent got back to me, set up a meeting for me a few weeks later, went to his office, sat down, and let him know what I was looking to do. The next person that I reached out to the day after I met with the superintendent was Dr. Yolanda Johnson. I sent a text message to her just to let her know I wanted to meet and talk to her about something that I had going on. After that, I got an email from Dr. Johnson setting up a meeting with herself, Rhonda Jacobs, and Jen McQuaid. So the meeting was going to be in June. I thought this is probably a good idea. I can meet with everybody, let them know at once. I did want to meet with Dr. Johnson first, why I reached out to her individually, because I thought that she deserved that, and it's something I wanted to talk to her about. That meeting, unfortunately, had to be postponed, and after that, just waiting kind of to hear when we were going to meet again. Also in June, I reached out to every member of the school committee, sent them an email just letting them know that I was looking to open a charter school and I wanted to meet with them in person. Also in June, I reached out to the union. I sent 2 messages to the union, just letting them know I was putting in a proposal for a charter. I wanted to sit down and speak to them as well. When I didn't hear back from the union, there are 2 different Horace Manns you can do. There's a Horace Mann 1 and a Horace Mann 3. When I didn't hear back from the union, I decided to go with the Horace Mann 3. The Horace Mann 3 is what you need school committee approval for. You don't need union approval. Horace Mann 1, you need both. So when I didn't hear back from anyone from the union, I decided to go with Horace Mann 3. When the school year started, I sent Dr. Johnson another email. She immediately wrote me back, said, yep, this is a great idea, let's meet in person. Talked about, I think there's a professional development coming up on a Tuesday. She said, if you don't hear from me, send me an email and I'll get back to you. That Tuesday afternoon, I sent another email just letting her know, hey, I still have to meet in person and want to sit down and talk to her. Again, I think she deserved that, and I really wanted to do that because we have history of working together. In the subcommittee meeting on Tuesday, there's a couple things that were said and brought to my attention, and a couple things I just want to hit on. The first thing was when I explained the difference of our charter, what we would be doing, and the population we would be serving. It was said that there was 2 schools in Springfield that were doing a similar thing. The first school that was mentioned was Aspire, which is a empowerment zone school. The night of our meeting on Tuesday, I contacted someone from Aspire and from the zone, and I asked them, what was this about, and if they had a school for dropouts. It was Matt Brunel. He told me that Aspire is not a school for dropouts. It is for students who are currently enrolled in the zone but are at risk of dropping out. The other school mentioned was Springfield Success Academy. Springfield Success Academy opened in January. is currently looking to enroll 50 students, and I believe currently has somewhere around a little bit over 20. And their school, and I said on Tuesday, is open from 4:30 to 7:30, but when I looked on the website, it said 4 to 8. So their school that is trying to engage dropouts and bring them back to earn their diploma is open from 4 to 8. The school that we are proposing is an all-year school, full year, open Monday through Thursday from 8:30 to 5. So although we are trying to hit a similar population, we are two different schools at two different times. At the subcommittee meeting, sorry, I'm having a hard time seeing this.
That's okay.
At the subcommittee meeting, it was also acknowledged that the target population is a vulnerable group. They can be, hold on a second. They can be hard to re-engage. So, this is a very vulnerable group that's hard to re-engage. What I'm going to tell you is that this is my strength. I've been doing and working with this population for a long time now, and I want to give you a few examples. One of the examples is during the pandemic, I had some of our community partners reach out. Marcus Cameron from probation, Roca, and the district attorney. They were working with a young man who was a high school dropout in our community who wanted to earn his high school diploma. They reached out to me because of our partnership and working together. We met together. We met together with this student, we re-enrolled him, and this student finished all his requirements for graduation. Now, the student I'm talking about also had to take MCAS. In 2020, the state started granting a modified CD. The modified CD was giving anyone a waiver for MCAS. This student, when we got the list from the state, was on there. Now the student not only finished the requirements, got the modified CD, and we were able to code him a graduate. And this is when the story gets much better. This is when a light came on in my head, and I said, if this student who was not enrolled for a full year came back and was on the modified CD list, I bet we could re-enroll a lot of the certificate of attainment students that we have in the community. Now, as a reminder, for some of you that may not know, a certificate of attainment is one of the worst things that could happen to a student. They finish every single requirement, all the things they need to do, but they can't receive their diploma because they have not passed the MCAS. I asked for a meeting. In the meeting was Dr. Johnson, Kim Wells, Tad Tokars, Lourdes Soto, and Paul Foster. I said to them, hey, I have this idea. I think we can re-enroll a lot of students in our community, a lot of young adults who are not able to take MCAS, who can earn a diploma off the CD modification. I didn't have a lot of facts or information to give them other than the one student that it happened to. They said, you got to get some more information, come back and we'll meet again. We contacted the state, asked them a few questions, seemed like it was going to work. I then reached out to a partner at Holyoke at Opportunity Academy who told me they were already doing this with their students. I came back to the meeting again, told them what was going on, then we brought in the superintendent. We rolled it out there and said, hey, this is what we're trying to do. We would do it in Central after school. We would use Central funding, get a small team together, and try and bring back this population. Figure even if it was one student, it was worth a shot. Superintendent said, sure, it was approved, and we got to work. This is the same population we were talking about right now. These students were out of school for 5 years. I asked Paul Foster, I said, Paul, can you give me a list of every student in the last 5 years who earned a certificate of attainment? Paul said, sure, no problem. He told his team sent it to me. The list had 300 students on there. Those 300 students had a name, an address, and a phone number. Myself and a small team from Central went out and started making phone calls and knocking on doors. When we got in touch with a student on the phone or in person at their house, we asked them to come in for a meeting because we wanted to see how serious they were. The students came in for a meeting. We explained the program to them. As the program was explained to them, it was told to them, we don't know if this is going to work. We've never done this before. But if you do this and it works, you're going to have a high school diploma. If you don't, you're going to be in the same place. Giving them good, convincing words to try and give this a shot. Well, our first session went through, and we were successful. The students showed up on a seating modification. We had a second session and a third session. There was no marketing. There was no building. There was nothing there but a list of names and a team of people hungry to go get these students. In that year, we had over 60 students earn a diploma. 60 students who are walking around here without one just because of a phone call, a meeting, and an idea that came from the one student that we met with our partners with. I'd also like to mention that not all the 60-plus students that we got were on our list. After our first session, and you guys know, everyone in the community talks. The kids, the young adults, they all talk to each other. We were getting phone calls and messages from friends and people that they know in the same boat that, for whatever reason, weren't on the list, which happens. They were bringing themselves in, and the calls continued. It wasn't just the outreach and the home visits. It was them believing in what we were doing, them having a great experience, and telling other people about it, which brought in even more people. This is how I've been doing programs at Central and with the district for a long time. I have this experience, and I want to say again, we have this target population that is a vulnerable group, and they can be hard to re-engage. I also know that this is my biggest strength. I know that we can make a Mays Academy charter viable. Success for community the same way I've done in the past 10 years at Central. In 2012, when I came to Central High School in the role of a graduation coach, which has now expanded to an administrator and a leader of many programs there. In 2012, the Central High School dropout rate was 7.7. Now I said, remember, in the last meeting, don't always go off of percentages. 7.7%. That is 125 students. 125 students dropped out in 2012. 10 years later, 2022, under my leadership, our dropout rate was 1.2%, 24 students. What did we do differently? We stopped doing the same thing we were doing over and over again. We found programs and ways to engage students. We built relationships. We did things differently. We learned from the past and continued to learn. We didn't go from 7% to 1%. We went from 7% to 4% to 3% to 2% to 1%. This is what we did there, and this is under my leadership. I don't like talking about myself. It's not what I like to do, but I'm just trying to explain that it's not just a school, it's not just a blueprint, it's the leadership and the people that work there that make it work. In the subcommittee meeting on Tuesday, I learned that the union sent a letter to all school committee members saying that they oppose the charter and, to not approve it. The same union also said that they think it'd be good for an empowerment zone school. This makes me believe that they believed in the application. To say to vote no for it, but to make it an empowerment zone proves that. They also emailed our superintendent before that with the same message. In the subcommittee meeting on Tuesday, they explained that they didn't know that we had a program in the district that ran it, and that's why they thought it'd be great to be run in the empowerment zone. They said that they found out that day or the day before that we had a program. Now, this program's been going on since January, so I believe they should have known when saying this ahead of time. Also, since Tuesday, when our meeting, subcommittee meeting, was streamed, my phone has been blowing up with union members from Unit A, counselors, teachers, Unit B administrators, telling me how much they love this idea, how bad this community needs it, and they wish me the best. So the union put something out to our leaders without asking union representatives. I've never brought a proposal without having data showing that there is a need. We have a need for this in the community. I said it on Tuesday, and I'm only going to say it one more time. In the last 5 years, we have had 1,295 students drop out. That is with us doing so many things and making so many changes. If we can make this school available and improve the school, we will bring back other dropouts that will graduate and have career and post-secondary plans. That is something I've been doing for a long time, and that is something I know I can do if I am able to do it. When I say the dropout numbers, and I give you percentages, I'm reminding you that these people are individuals in our community. Every intervention I've ever put in place or taken a lead on has been to better our students. I hope we can put personal feelings aside and make a decision that will do the same. A lot of people don't know this, but I did not grow up here. I grew up in North Jersey. Where I grew up, I learned a lot. One of the first things I learned was loyalty. Loyalty to my family, loyalty to my friends, loyalty to my community. When I came up here at 18 years old, I didn't have a family member here. I didn't know a single person here. I enrolled at AIC and became a student athlete. In that time I was a student, I became a father, a husband, the first graduate in my family, a coach, a teacher, a counselor, an administrator, and a leader. I built my reputation from scratch here. I'd like to echo the words of our superintendent. Now these are his quotes, so I gotta make sure I get it right. I gotta put it close to my eyes here. Yes.
Want to borrow my cheaters?
Yes, we are certainly pleased with these gains, and we celebrate them. But we are not satisfied. We want to make sure every single student graduates. Even one dropout will be one too many. So we will double our efforts to make sure we continue trending in the right direction. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. Thank you very much for your work and your passion about this subject. If school committee members have any questions or comments, I do want clarification from Superintendent Warwick, from Dr. Yolanda Johnson and Rhonda Jacobs, but I also want to get clarified that this original proposal was Commonwealth, and the 11th hour came in Horace Mann, which means it comes on the city side. And I did notice the budget balloons to about $9 million, 2024, 2025, and that's all on the city side. So that was a change in the original proposal. That is, and there's no figures of how that's going to be paid or how much money is going to be allotted to that. So it was an 11th hour change from Commonwealth to Horace Mann, which then comes out of the city side of the budget, school side, which, you know, we are looking to invest to build new schools and other programs on it. So that's why I want clarification on this, so we take an educated vote. But that's $9 million that I saw from I think 2024 to 20, and there's no listing of building which is city responsibility or the framework of how much that is going to cost on the district. So there's no answers in your presentation on that.
So there's no answers in my presentation, but there is in the application. An application was brought forward to us in the subcommittee meeting on Tuesday. I did the money with Pat Roach. So me and Pat sat down, we went over the budget, and he said to everybody on Tuesday in the subcommittee meeting that this school will not cost the city $1, that all of their funding comes per pupil from the state of Massachusetts into our account and gets dished out to the school. We also start with a $500,000 planning grant from the state that does not come from the city's budget. We're also eligible for another $1 million in a planning grant over 18 months. So as long as we, as a school, which I'm telling you what we will do, only enroll current dropouts, we will not lose any money as a district, and we will not lose any money as a city. If anything, Pat said it when he broke it down, that we will have money to pay for people's pensions with it, for nursing, custodial, a lot of different things that we have in the Springfield Public Schools. Now, Pat's not here today, and that is not my expertise, but I can tell you, Mayor Sarno, that he said that this will not cost $1 to the Springfield Public Schools. The only way it would is if we were taking students, current students enrolled, and bringing them to the school, which they obviously would lose their per pupil funding if it was before October 1st, and we would get that. But I'm not going to do that. Like, this is not something I would do. This is a community I've been working with for a long time, and my word is loyal. I'm going to re-engage dropouts, lots of them. They're going to come back to school, and they're going to be members of this community. And remember, money was brought up a lot on Tuesday. Remember what I told everyone on Tuesday. If we have a dropout in the community, the national stat is that it costs this community, our district, over time, $500,000.
But on the building, the building is, you don't have a building. It becomes
don't have a building.
It becomes a city responsibility.
That is a city
their building.
responsibility.
So I'm going to have Superintendent Warwick clarify that, and also with the many alternative programs. Because again, we have to look at the bottom line of the budget here, and there's a lot of blank spaces there. There's some great charter schools, don't get me wrong, but we've had some charter schools that have gone belly up that we've had to absorb. So my question, I just want clarification of the alternative programs we have. We need to know on the money side, besides school side, that's on my side. I have a lot of bonding to do for new schools to be built and rehab. And the question is that on the 11th hour, this went from a Commonwealth charter to a Horace Mann, which puts all the responsibility on the city and on the school side, funding-wise. So Superintendent Warwick, please.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. So Tom is right in the way that Pat constructed the budget. There'd be no negative impact relative to how the budget is constructed. The problem is, though, if students were to enroll in our programs, they would be in our programs, we'd be getting the funding. If they go to Tom's program, that funding goes to the charter school. So it would have a program impact on our programs and make our budgeting for our alternative programs, and we have 10. Plus Phoenix Charter Academy is also in the same space. So we would lose funding for our own alternative schools, making them very hard to run financially. The cost of the building is something different. It's when you have a Commonwealth charter, the Commonwealth charter has to go get a building. When you have a Horace Mann charter, the city has to provide the building. When and if there are problems down the road, and we've had experience with Horace Mann charters, if there's financial problems, the city has to straighten out those problems. Pat and I had to do that at new leadership, or it would have been on the city side. So there's a lot of pieces that come with Horace Mann that make it a problem. I will say that Tom Guy has done absolutely tremendous work for the city of Springfield. Has passion for the work, has done an incredible job for us. I just think a Horace Mann at this time is not something I could recommend because of the program impact, not because of Tom's work. I sat down with Rhonda Jacobs and Yolanda. We have 10 programs of our own that would be serving these same students. Should they go to a charter, the funding goes to the charter and not to the public district, and that's where we lose funding. So I have my questions not on Tom Guy or his work, which I think is exemplary. It's on the program impact, and I'd like Yolanda and Rhonda to speak to the program impact relative to our programs.
Could I just say one thing off of,
Yeah.
We're entering deliberation. Only members of this committee are in deliberation. If the presentation, unless there's a specific question to the presenter, this is deliberation. This is for the body.
So we're going to have the presentation now from Dr. Johnson and Principal Jacob. Yeah. Yes.
So,
sir.
and I don't know if this question would be to the presenter, but it's to someone, and seeing as though Pat Roach isn't here. If the population that Mr. Guy is referring to is not enrolled in our district, where does that per pupil allocation come from?
They're not enrolled right now. They wouldn't be in our allocation or anyone else's allocation. However, if they re-engaged in one of our programs, which we're constantly reaching out for, we'd be getting the per pupil allocation in one of our alternative programs. So the loss of revenue would be we'd be competing for the same students. Yeah, so that would be the loss of revenue.
If Ms. Hurst is done, Attorney Murphy, yeah?
I believe I'm done in this moment.
I had one question, I think, for Mr. Guy. The $500,000 grant that can you give us a little more information about that?
yeah, so when your charter gets granted, the state starts you with a $500,000 planning grant, and then also gives you up to another $1 million over a certain time. And that can be used, and that's actually in Pat's budget in the application.
Okay.
That's a startup grant, right, Tom, that they give
Startup,
through the state for charter schools.
I get it.
Yeah.
So do we currently have any Horace Mann charter schools?
We don't. No. Oh, the only one we had was
Aren't we
leadership.
supposed to have?
No, we're not. We're not. No one in the state is starting any Horace Mann.
And with respect to space, enrollment, buildings, and I understand the logistical issues, but our enrollment is down almost 4,000 students in the last 10 years. We don't have space for 150 kids, I think, is the beginning.
We wouldn't have space in our current schools, and a lot of times when you're running these models, you wouldn't put them in a current school. But we wouldn't have space in our current schools for them. We'd have to look for space.
We don't have space for 150. I mean, I don't want to argue.
It's a program that's going to expand to 450, so you'd have to plan around it. And, that's a considerable amount of space. So I think we'd have to.
And we are, I mean, this is about kids that are struggling, right? I mean, they've been out of school for 3-4 years, trying to get them a degree.
Well, 16 to 24, so some kids could be contemplating dropping out.
At risk.
Yeah.
Do we know what the budget is for this? What the proposed budget would be?
The budget construct is in there. The budget construct is going to be driven off the number of kids they serve. They get the per pupil allocation for the kids they serve minus costs. So that's how it's done. But the problem is the program impact is we have 10 alternative schools working in the same space, and you'll be pulling the kids out of those programs. So I'd like Yolanda and Rhonda to come up and talk about the program
Principal Jacobs,
impact.
could you clarify the programs, please? Yeah, Vice Chair.
As they're coming, I just wanted to do a point of clarification. My mic is low. Thank you. That Pat did say on Tuesday that as long as students are enrolled by October 1st, that otherwise we would have to wait for reimbursement the following year. So that would require a cost to the district if students were enrolled after October 1st. So I wanted to make sure that we were reminded of the full statement that Pat did make on Tuesday. And the other thing that I wanted to acknowledge is that Principal Carr is also on Zoom, who's the principal of Aspire, and she's available for questions after Dr. Johnson and Dr. Jacobs do their presentation.
Thank you, Vice Chair Naylor. Dr. Johnson, Principal Jacobs, for
Good
clarification
evening. Is
of what
this
we offer.
the right mic?
Okay, good evening. Before I turn it over to Mrs. Jacobs, I just wanted to provide just a point of clarity and some context. The district hired the first 2 graduation coaches in the district in 2007. So the district was mobilizing our efforts around the problem that we had. You know, at one point, and Mr. Mayor, you quote this, we almost had 800 dropouts at one point. And so it was really critically important that we mobilize in a different way, and we had 2 graduation coaches, Kevin Maxwell and Don Rogers, and they worked between SciTech, Putnam, and Commerce. And that work started then with those 2 positions. Today we have 10 graduation coaches. So that position exists because of this work. And I will say that it hasn't been easy work. And what Mr. Guy mentioned about engaging dropouts, that's what we know to be true through the work since 2007. Okay, so this is work that has been embedded in the district, happening in the district. And it actually established the opportunity for some of the work that you've heard this evening. I also wanted to share that we have the high school completion program, which the student that was re-engaged during the pandemic should have been referred to our program, should not have been a student at Central, okay? We have the structures, we have the framework, and we have the ability to serve our community and provide them with opportunities to earn a high school diploma and earn a family-sustaining wage. And one last thing that I'd like to say is, because I really don't want to get into the details of internal meetings that we had, okay? When we had those meetings regarding students to meet who were not enrolled in school, left, and had a certificate of attainment, that is the work that was being done in Holyoke. Okay, Holyoke Public Schools was engaging in that work, and that was mentioned in a meeting with the state. The state didn't want to touch it too much for whatever reason, but when I participated in that meeting, I listened, and it was around a very specific group at that time. It was not about work that was going to continue because I knew internally what else was happening in the district. But I didn't interfere. That work happened, and then we found out the work continued to happen, and that was not supposed to be the case. Again, being collegial, respecting the work that Mr. Guy wanted to do, that's what happened, but that is not work that was supposed to continue, because why would we write a grant for Student Success Academy? It just doesn't make sense. It's not congruent. But at this time, I'm just going to turn it over to Ms. Jacobs because I do believe context and background is so, so important. And we have an amazing group of graduation coaches. But again, those positions existed because of the 2 positions I hired in 2007. And we didn't even have the money for those positions. I had to go and talk to the former principal of the alternative schools that the money was allocated to his schools. And he gave me a year. He said, just give me a year. And I gave him a year, and those funds were allocated to me so that we can hire 2 graduation coaches. And just one last thing, as you know, at the time, Commerce and SciTech were our 2 schools with the highest dropout rate and the lowest graduation rate. And we established what we called ComTech, and we met weekly to analyze data, to come up with strategies and ways to help students. And again, that set the groundwork for where we are today, for there to even be an interest in doing something external to Springfield Public Schools, but we're doing it right now in Springfield Public Schools. So I'm going to let Mrs. Jacobs speak to and answer some of the questions.
Thank you, Dr. Johnson. Principal Jacobs, please.
And just for some context, Rhonda runs all of our alternative schools. They all report to one principal. So she has 10 different programs reporting to her. So we have an array of services now. So,
thank you.
Rhonda.
Good evening. I just have to clarify one thing. Mr. Guy and I did speak 3 weeks ago He asked me to call him. I called him. And what we spoke about was a student. Yeah, that was an opportunity for me to learn about this proposal, and it did not come up. So we'll just move past that. So this particular proposal will absolutely affect the alternative schools. What we already know in the alternative schools, we've had other in-district schools trying to refer students to us when they were still enrolled. SSA currently has folks calling us, schools calling us, asking if their student can participate, and the answer is no. That would be harmful to our schools, and definitely impact us financially. Now, we are currently the same demographic. The bottom line is really is the same demographic. Those students or adults that are 18 and older, 18 to 25, that's our target population. That is what we've been approved through DESE, that's what our grant supports, and that's our mission. To look for those students that withdrew from school, likely during COVID, and provide them the opportunity to finish their high school diploma. Currently, we actually have students that are beyond 25. We have a 40-year-old that's engaged in this process. We have a 58-year-old that's asking. But we're meeting the target, we're getting there, meeting the target, having more 18 to 23-year-old students enrolled right now. So I know that this will have an impact on us. Financially, I'm asking that you continue to consider Springfield Success Academy because we have full intention of expanding and growing. When Dr. Johnson and I first talked about this, our discussion was around having a full-day program. We thought carefully about what the impact of that would be, and we talked about space, a building. Well, no, let's start small. Let's utilize the classrooms we have on the second floor, of which there are 5, to support these students, and let's show the district that this can be done and grow. And so with that being said, we have every intention of moving out and growing our program. So not only will it have an impact on the high school completion program and other schools within the district, it's going to have a financial impact. It is also going to really tap into our district's highly qualified teacher pool. That is a big concern for me. We're already struggling to keep our teachers, to obtain more licensed teachers. That is going to have a heavy impact on what we already have in the district a problem with and concerns with. So that's where I lay it, but we're already doing this work.
Thank you, Principal Jacobs. Any questions or comments? I want to ask Superintendent Warwick, again, I have to, on the budget spreadsheet, I need to look at the bottom line here. That's, we try to be fiscally prudent. There's just a tremendous amount of blank spaces here.
Yeah,
And
so,
I just want to say, to 500,000, and listen, Tommy does a great job, Coach Guy does a great job, but then it balloons to 3.3 million, 4.7 million, 6.3 million, 8 million, $9.7 million, but I don't, who's going to be responsible for paying that, and we're going to lose money? 'Cause
So the way
it's all blank.
Let me explain it, Mayor, because I didn't explain it properly before. So the way it gets funded is off the students they enroll. So the problem is they'll get the funding for the students they enroll will account for those students. If they're enrolled by October 1, they get the funding the next year for those students. So that funding would come out. But the problem is the program impact. If those students are coming out, going to Tom's school instead of the programs we're already running, we're going to lose the revenue for our students and start struggling to run those programs with Rhonda, who's done a fabulous job running those programs over the years, and with Yolanda's efforts. And that's going to hamper us in our ability to pay to run our own alternative programs, because the charter will get the money for the kids that they enroll. So that's where it's going to hamper us. So it's constructed in a way that it's a better construct than was used with new leadership, because we followed the empowerment zone model for funding. Pat did that. So that piece isn't a problem. The problem is when the kids come out of our programs, we lose the funding. Just like the present other charter schools in the district, every time a student enrolls in a charter school, we have hypothetically 20 students in the class, it goes down to 19. Our costs all stay the same, but the money for that student goes to the charter school. And the transportation costs go to the charter school. So that's problematic. The other piece is, of course, the building piece.
So just to clarify, the district would lose funding, number one. Number two, on the city side, on a Horace Mann, again, I'm responsible for the physical plan of the building, and I'm responsible for all the school busing, which is
For the
about
transportation.
$38 million, so that will add. I want to clarify that, because again, you know, make these decisions, there's no numbers.
So it's really the programmatic impact of the students going there instead of our programs, and how do we support those programs? And it would become very difficult. And you know, Ron has done a fabulous job expanding the program to meet the need, and then came up with Success Academy to meet this adult population need. We're just trying to get it started. You know, we're not going to be able to fund everything, so that would be the construct. So again, I'd just like to reiterate, Tom Guy's done a fabulous job. My question here is more the financial impact and the program impact on our programs, not his work, because he's done a fabulous job for us, and I'm appreciative. The folks in our alternative schools have also done an incredible job, and I have to support them here. So I'm recommending we don't approve this at this time, and we support our own programs. And like I say, in due deference to Tom, who's done a fabulous job for us as well.
Do we have a figure potentially how much this would take away from the district?
It would be every student that went out, we'd lose the $18,000 in funding for.
Okay. And
If they engaged in our program, we'd get the $18,000 in funding. They go to Tom's program, we don't get that $18,000.
And again, the other costs are incurred on my side, the city side, for physical plan or supplying a building, and the busing, obviously. Mr. Gonzalez?
And again, I don't blame Tom for that. The whole charter funding mechanism has always been flawed, and the Horace Mann one is flawed also.
And I just wanted to point out again, the original concept was a Commonwealth. Literally, the 11th hour was changed to Horace Mann. And I don't believe we don't have any Horace Manns, and I believe they're not really moving that in the state also.
It's not been very popular in the state, no.
Okay, but I mean, what Tom does is great. Mr. Gonzalez?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to, share a few comments and be forthcoming and honest with the proponents and the opponents on this matter. And I want to thank both Tommy Guy, Dr. Johnson, and Ms. Jacobs for all the work that all of you do, for all of the at-risk and high-risk youth and young adults in our city. But there's some issues that I just want to identify in some of the arguments that were presented this evening. The idea that, one program or another program is the end-all be-all for all dropout youth and young adults in our city is based off of the premise that youth and young adults don't have agency and don't have choice in terms of the programs, the people, the relationships that they're going to engage with. The other piece is that if there wasn't a need beyond our schools and beyond our school department, it would make null and void all of the non-school-based vendors in our city that do this work. Once again, all of the non-school vendors, if there wasn't a need in this city, folks like the New England Farm Workers, folks like the Square Ones that are funded to do high school diploma completion, programs like the Youth Build in this city, if there wasn't a need beyond what our schools are already currently doing. With that being said, I do wrestle with the same points that my colleagues have brought forward, what the mayor's brought forward, what the superintendent's brought forward. Again, I'm going to be honest and forthcoming. I wrestle with this idea of the city's capacity to produce this physical plant building. I know initially when I became aware of this, this was the Commonwealth piece, and it was brought forth as a courtesy. The school committee was not going to need to approve this piece. And now I wrestle with our ability to have the capacity to move forward with something like this. Regardless, I do want to make it known to the proponents here this evening, it has nothing to do with the work that they're doing, nor the proposal. I think that they still have, the proponents on this, still their prerogative and right to pursue other avenues to get this done. But again, Cannot have this argument or this framework. I challenge my colleagues here this evening of this one or that one. We can't have that idea. There's multiple players here. It takes a village in our city to get this job done. I believe that Tom Guy's part of that village. I believe that Dr. Johnson is a part of that village. Ms. Jacobs is a part of that village, and so many others, school-based, non-school-based, that are part of that village. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Gonzalez. Any other questions or comments?
Mr. Mayor, I would like to give Ms. Principal Carr an opportunity, as she's been waiting for an opportunity to speak for a few minutes on what.
This is
Aspire
on the
doing.
Aspire, yes.
Yes.
Principal Carr, please. Thanks for reminding me.
Hi, everyone. Are you able to hear me?
Yes,
we
Principal
are.
Carr, we can, yes.
Okay, awesome. So I'm just going to speak to our targeted demographic of students. As you know, we are a new school in the Commerce family of schools, and the majority of our students are at risk of dropout from the Commerce family of schools. They're chronically and critically disengaged and chronically and critically absent from the Commerce family of schools. We do have a year-round model, and our time goes from 7:20 to 2:20, and then we have our evening school from 3 to 6 p.m. as well. And that's pretty much, we have about 50 students so far, and we expect to have about another 25 by the end of October. Again, the majority of our students are from the Commerce families of schools, and they are critically and chronically at risk.
Thank you, Principal Carr. Any questions or comments of Principal Carr's presentation?
Thank you. No, I just wanted to
Vice
take
Chair
that
Naylor.
opportunity because they are doing such great work over there. And one of the things that I did bring up on Tuesday as part of our work is that we have to sit on the Empowerment Zone Board, so we get the opportunity to engage and comment on what happens in these schools, even though they're not part of our district. And so it's super important to me that the population that she's targeting is very similar, but not just that. If students do drop out, they do have the opportunity to re-engage. And there are some students that are in her program that they were able to bring back that had dropped out. And so this process in this model that we've been using since 2007 has been elaborated because of our ability to get resources behind the model. And so when we look at what Dr. Johnson is and Mrs. Jacobs are talking about, we have this phenomenal program, but if we were to be able to put more resources behind it, then we can continue to expand it in a similar fashion to what they've been able to do at Commerce.
Thank you, Vice Chair Naylor. Any questions or comments?
Thank you, Principal
Could I
Carr.
just say one more
I think
thing
Ms.
there?
Hurst wanted.
Oh, I'm
Ms. Hurst?
I have lots to say, so you go.
Okay.
No, you go.
Attorney Murphy.
You sure? So I have a couple of questions, Mr. Mayor. So the first question I have is the same question that I posed to Mr. Guy. So the students that are going to enroll in the Success Academy, are they going to have a per pupil allocation? Those are students that are not currently enrolled. But because they're in, are they going to have a per pupil allocation, or we'll have to wait for October 1st for them as well?
So they'd have to be in by October 1st of 1 year to get a per pupil allocation the next year. For them.
Okay, so we're starting with students not getting a per pupil allocation at all, and we have to wait a whole year.
That's
Is that
how the
accurate?
funding mechanism works,
Okay.
yeah.
And then the second question that I have is, when this budget was created, was this created with, my understanding is that this was created or modeled after the zone. Was this modeled after the zone when we thought that it was a Commonwealth charter, or when we learned that it was a Horace Mann charter? Or has it been the same budget the whole time?
So I can help with that one. So what Pat tried to do was create something that works for the zone, because the last time we had a Horace Mann charter school, the budgeting process was a complete nightmare, and we were on the hook for it, and we had to fix it all. So he wanted to create a budget that would work, and the empowerment zone model of budget would work for a charter school model. So that's what he suggested. So we wouldn't have to worry about balancing the budget, that kind of thing.
So that happened after we knew that it had turned to a Horace Mann?
That was developed for a Horace Mann, I believe. Yeah. Yeah.
So even if the district wasn't supporting a Horace Mann, we still went ahead and provided in-kind services to help this come
Pat
to be?
stepped up because should the school committee pass this proposal, then we'd be on the hook for the finances. So we wanted to create a finance mechanism that would work, but that would be based on school committee approval. So, because we had that terrible experience with new leadership with the budget. So he created a viable model, should it work, just so if school committee approved it, it would be there.
So I appreciate some of the things that School Committee Man Josiah Gonzalez lifted up. I understand the need. I agree that it's not about you, Mr. Guy. I think that Rhonda, Ms. Jacobs and Dr. Johnson do great work, and that we can't always default to one particular model. I absolutely get that. I feel like this whole process, as I said in the subcommittee meeting, has been more messier than I would have liked to have seen. I too have received phone calls from proponents and opponents of this particular proposal, And the things that strike me or resonate with me the most is that there's all this great work happening and no one's talking about how to share best practices, or if they are, it's completely siloed. And the idea that, or at least my feeling when I heard, because I was one of the school committee members that Mr. Guy called and reached out to, when I heard of this, I thought, oh, perhaps the district is supporting this because somehow it's going to augment, help to supplement what's already happening in our alternative schools. I didn't realize that these two entities were going to start to compete and be pitted against one another. And it's so apparent that there's now these fractured relationships, and it's disheartening, to say the least. But I will just say to you that in good conscience, and I understand the population that has to be served, we already have a slew of schools that are being managed by the empowerment zone. And every single time I turn around, whether it's budget season or superintendent evaluation season, we are hearing from people, how is this happening? You don't even manage half your schools. And I just can't, in good conscience, privatize another school. I can't. We just, at our first school committee meeting, heard about all the money that we were losing because of charters. And now we're sitting here, and it feels like, had we been really honest in the beginning, we would not be sitting in this place. Had we been really honest with Mr. Guy about, I don't know that this is something that we could support because of A, B, or C, we would not be sitting here having this conversation.
Thank you, Mr. Hurst. Attorney Murphy?
If you don't mind, Mayor, first of all, Mr. Guy, I just want to say how much I appreciate what you're doing and the passion that you bring to trying to get our kids to graduate. I mean, that's really our goal. And, you know, my children went to Central, and they know you, and they know your children. And, you know, I know you do a tremendous job. And so does Rhonda, and so does Ms. Johnson, and Ms. Hurst is right. It's, you know, when you're sort of, you know, fighting amongst each other, it doesn't help. But I do think that parents and young people at risk need options, and I think this is a good option for them. So I just wish you the very best. How it's going to go, I don't know, but you know, I do support what you're doing, and I really appreciate the work that you're doing with our kids. And you have a lot of good people behind you, not Mr. McDonald, but the other people there. So,
Thank you, Attorney Murphy. Any other questions or comments?
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Collins, please.
It should come as no surprise to anybody that I'm anti-charter. Actually, it should come as no surprise to the public that this committee has been on record itself over and over and over again as being anti-charter. And part of the reason that is purely financial. The charter theory and mechanism did nothing but drain money from the public schools, which serves all of our children. And for the vast majority of charters that have been started have not been successful. Most of them have never been anywhere near as successful as our own programs are. The reason that I was willing to take a look and actually read through this very well put together proposal, because it told me what they're trying to do, is the reputation of the presenter. However, the target population is the same population as one of our buildings. And I had a vehement argument with Mr. Roach after the last meeting when he categorized it as found money. It is not found money. When you're going after the same target population of students, any one of them that doesn't enroll in a department program is lost money. That's money that goes out of the system. We already have programs to address the needs of these students. They are in their infancy, granted, but we need to make sure that they have a chance to succeed and not create another financial drain on this system. We have seen charters fail. The only other Horace Mann charter school we had probably failed more miserably than any other charter school. The state had to actually come in and say, we're taking your charter.
It's fair to say that.
So no one should be surprised that usually I wouldn't even have to read the proposal to be against it. I read the proposal and it's got so much good in it, but if we're doing similar within the department, we should not fracture our efforts.
Thank you, Mr. Collins. The other thing I'd just like to say on the charter, too, more and more times my office is getting phone calls from family members, or moms and dads, because they are Springfield residents, with issues at charter schools, and I have to explain to them that I have no jurisdiction over them, and DESE, and you have to deal with their board of directors, and that is coming. You can talk to my staff. That is, and again, I always know there's two sides of a story. That is coming up a number of times now, and it else, Danny, Superintendent Warwick, will tell you, I get a lot that people say, geez, we want to come back to our Springfield Public Schools for the programs. But yet they'll call, I know they'll call school committee members too, and me, and say, my son or my daughter's having an issue. We need help with this. We're not getting any response from the headmaster, the principal, the board on it. And I can indirectly send something to them, but we have no jurisdiction. Or I said, you have to speak to your DESE representative on that. So, and that's, again, that's not the cat and Tom. He does a great job. But I'm not saying so, but I have been noticing a trend now on that. And, the last time there was a Horace Mann here, it cost the city on it. So, we have the programs. We should probably try to work together on it. And, but I have been noticing, and I know Vice Chair Naylor was not, I'm getting more and more phone calls, letters, and emails now that nobody's responding to them. Again, don't know two sides of the story, but they're not getting any response. So they come to the mayor, or they come to the school committee, or we want to speak to Superintendent Warwick. And I said, well, we don't have any direct jurisdiction over that charter. Ms. Gresham, I'm sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. No disrespect to anyone in their efforts in bringing this up, a new charter school, but we already have a great program in place under the leadership of Dr. Johnson and Mrs. Jacobs. So I don't see the need of another charter. It's going to take money from the district, and the rationale is the same as what we're doing already. So.
Thank you, Ms. Gresham.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments?
Mayor, can I just say
Attorney Murphy.
I'm sorry,
Yeah,
but
go ahead.
I mean, I don't think it's fair to compare Mr. Guy's proposal to a failed charter school that was in existence 7 or 8 years ago. I mean, I don't think that's fair to do, and we don't know what Mr. Guy can do. We have a plan, as Mr. Collins said. It's a very it's a very good proposal. I mean, the budget is not that restrictive. And, you know, I don't think we should compare it to a school that didn't work 8 or 9 years ago. I don't think that's fair to Mr. Guy, because he, you know, it doesn't sound like it's going to pass tonight, but, you know, he might be back. And I think, you know, I think we should be fair to him and what he's trying to do, which is to help our kids at risk and our kids that are struggling.
Thank you. I mean, I don't think there's any question about what the Coach Guy, what he's done. We're just not comparing, we're just telling you the history of the charter school experience that has occurred here with specifically one, but others too. We could name a few others, and the city and the school department was holding the bag on it, and that included across the board with students, families, teachers, administration, physical plant of the building, especially on the Horace Mann side. I believe on one we had physical plant in West Springfield and had to bus those children out to West Springfield. That's where that charter school wanted to go, and we had to pay for that, though they were Springfield students some years ago. So,
And I definitely wanted to add too, I'm not necessarily anti-charter, Mr. Collins, because I do believe that parents should have an opportunity to pick whatever type of school that they want to send their children to and whatever is available to them. And I, as a mom of 4, have definitely done that. I've had my kids in charter school, private school, parochial, you name it. Whatever was best for them that we could afford or that we could get them into at that time is what we did. But at the same time, I definitely have a problem with us not having purview or jurisdiction over an entity that we would have to approve. And unlike the empowerment zone where some of us sit on that board and have the ability to comment and weigh in, that is not the case with a charter school. We do not have that type of jurisdiction. So although we know that the program is phenomenal on paper, we would not have the ability to do anything besides approve on tonight. And so I have a problem with that. I also have a problem with us having 2 programs that target the same demographic that have started this year, not even a month ago. And for us to turn around and say, oh, let's start another program, and we haven't had a chance to even assess how well they're doing or what their needs are, or what their best practices are, so that we can compare and contrast. We have to set benchmarks so that we can see what success is. And although I admire the board who is supporting Mr. Guy and even Mr. Guy and his passion and his work, I definitely feel that if we took the same amount of mind power and brain power and resources and put it behind work that we're already doing to perfect that, we could absolutely get to the 1,000 kids that are not in school right now that should be in school. And so I feel very strongly about that, and I absolutely respect what the SEA is asking us to do as well. Because I have to consider all of the constituents that we have and all of our families that are reaching out as we make this decision, which is not an easy decision. But in actuality, it's a decision that we have to make, and we all know that even if we don't agree to do it on tonight, there's still another path that can be taken if this is what the folks who are involved in this project want to do, and they can do a Commonwealth charter and be able to still get that work done in ways that other folks who have wanted to come before us in the past have had to do, because we did not approve their charters either. So just wanted to say that.
Thank you, Vice Chair Naylor. If there's no other questions or comments, is there a motion? Yes, Mr. Gonzalez? Yeah.
Yes, I just wanted to add, Mr. Mayor, to the comment that Mr. Collins had alluded to, of this body having a historical precedent to be anti-charter. I just want to make clear to the proponents and opponents on this, and certainly make a commitment to helping all avenues, to helping all youth and all young adults in our city, and encourage all of my colleagues, regardless of the way the vote lands this evening, for us to be able to support and continue to support the programs of Dr. Johnson and Ms. Jacobs, and also encourage my colleagues to support, even if the proponents on this, with Tommy Guy and his board, moving on to a new venue with the Commonwealth Charter application. I think it's clear to all of us that it's not the idea, it's not the heart, nor it is the intent that's being voted on this evening. I wholeheartedly believe that all of us have in mind the potential risk and liabilities, regardless of who's bringing this forward, that the very structure implicates on the city and on the school district. And I haven't heard from the mayor nor our superintendent our ability to actually make good on those risks and those liabilities, which I totally understand. So thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll leave it at that.
Thank you, Mr.
Mr. Mayor, may I
Yes.
please?
Yes,
So
sir.
just a point, or as we've heard this evening, that context is important. I think, oh no, me, Barbara, and Chris have been here the longest. I think that the reason Chris may have said what it is that he said is because there was this point in time, right, when question 2 was on the ballot, and the Springfield School Committee took a real strong stance against the lifting of the cap of charters. And so we were at the forefront of that movement. I'm assuming that that's what you mean. And when the state legislature had commissioned a group to study the funding formula, we were there to testify. And so there are lots of people who do believe that as a city or as a school committee that we have been anti-charter, and it's because of the stances that we had taken prior to some of you being on the school committee.
We've also,
Just to provide some historical context, that's where that came from. And it was more so around the fact that our budget was bleeding, and not so much about choice, but that our budget was bleeding, and until the Commonwealth changed the funding formula, a city our size, a school district our size, could not afford that.
thank you for the clarification, Ms. Hurst, and a good point, because we did try to move legislation when it pertained to busing, which the state has really never lived up to. We're supposed to be 100% reimbursed, nothing. We pay it on the city side. We tried to work some type of funding. The legislature wouldn't do it, didn't do it. We also tried to work a modification on charters, too, on the funding aspect. They wouldn't do it. So that affects the bottom line of not only the school district, it affects the bottom line on my city side on it. So we have tried to work to the best for our children and our students, no question. We want the best for them, whether on the public side or a charter side on it. But fiscally, again, I have to look at this. There's no numbers in here. And then so the initial $500,000 starts, the following year goes to 3.3 million. There's no numbers. Who's paying for that? So, is there a motion on the floor to move the question?
I would move that we not approve the charter for Amaze Academy.
Motion by Mr. Collins, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Gresham. Roll call vote is required. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Ms. Hurst?
Yes.
Attorney Murphy?
No.
Mr. Gonzalez?
Just to clarify, what do we, how is it worded? I don't have the agenda
A yes,
in front of me.
a yes.
The motion was
motion
not to approve.
to not approve. So a yes vote means you're not approving. A no-
Yes.
Mr. Collins?
Yes.
Ms. Gresham?
Yes.
Ms. Monroe Naylor?
Yes.
Mayor Sarno?
Yes. More than sufficient vote, this matter does not pass. Thank you very much. G is to approve revised 2023-2024 school calendar. Superintendent Warwick?
Thank you, Mayor. You have a proposal in your packet on that. Patty was astute enough to catch that the presidential primary occurs this year on March 5th. We always try to have a PD day on election days because of the safety element with bringing kids into the school on election days. So what we're proposing here and change the calendar, we had January 5th changed, was originally a PD day, a week we normally have it, but it's not Three Kings Day. It's Three Kings Day is that Saturday, so it wouldn't influence Three Kings Day. So we could change the PD day from January 5th to March 5th, and that we wouldn't have to have students in session. We could have a PD day on the presidential primary day. So I'd propose we consider revising the calendar and approving this.
Any questions or comments, Superintendent Warwick?
I'm sorry. How does that affect Three Kings Day?
No.
It doesn't, because Three Kings Day, we had it that week, but it's not actually on Three Kings Day, January 5th. actually January 6th,
Tuesdays,
the
January
Saturday, so it
6th,
doesn't
yeah.
affect it. That's why we were able to move it without
Chris?
any conflict.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, Mr. Gonzalez.
Yeah, I just want to clarify that I think that, to Superintendent Warwick's point, it's extremely important to keep the safety of our children at the forefront. But I also want to encourage those that may be watching or will watch the recording of this evening's meeting, that I know that both the city and the school department is committed to continuing with the Three Kings tradition in subsequent years. Isn't that correct, Mr. Warwick?
That is absolutely correct.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gonzalez. Do you have a question? Vice Chair Naylor, I'm sorry.
Yes, I was just going to clarify if it was observed on that Friday, but it's not. So Three Kings Day is observed on that Saturday. Okay.
Yeah. And I double-checked with Josiah on that to make sure we had that right. So the path was clear to close on the primary day. I know sometimes those primaries don't get a huge vote, but there's still the traffic, there's still the safety of having outsiders in the school, and it's just the right thing to do for our student safety, and we can reorganize the PD without a problem.
Any other questions or comments on the schedule? Okay, hearing none, is there a motion?
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Collins, or second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Gresham. Roll call vote is required. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Ms. Hurst?
Yes.
Attorney Murphy?
Yes.
Mr. Gonzalez?
Yes.
Mr. Collins?
Yes.
Ms. Gresham?
Yes.
Ms. Monroe Naylor?
Yes.
Mayor Sarno?
Yes, more than sufficient vote, this matter passes.
Can I just add something, not that it needs to be voted on, I don't believe, but could we get that day in January where we get sworn in, sent to us sooner rather than later? I feel like last year, the Monday or the Thursday, whatever day it was that we were supposed to, we got late. If we could sort of add it or send it, thank you.
I think that it is actually January 1st.
That's what I thought, but last year we didn't do it on the 1st. We waited, we didn't do it on the 1st.
I don't know if we're gonna have to, well, we're gonna get clarification, because I do believe it is,
It was like the
it is the January 1st, the
Thursday or
first Monday.
For some reason, it was different for school committee than it was for council
Yeah.
and
Council
mayor.
and mayor,
And there
yeah.
was some, and I can't remember why, but there was and I thought it was fine, but we did have two different dates last
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think on the city side, it is, you have to go on that first thing, which I believe, I could be wrong, I believe is January 1st. So we'll have to check on that for clarification on, so. Okay, so this is all set, this is passed. We'll now move to informational discussion items for the record. Sedesco update is going to be tabled because we want to have proper time to the presentation. We have a long agenda, but we are going to move to mental health update, which is very, very important also. Superintendent Warwick, and I know you have Ms. Wells here.
Yeah.
Director.
We said we'd come back this year after debating about mental health in the spring with a lot of the new additions that the schools add to their budgets. Again, we always give all the Opportunity Act money, the ESSER funding, directly to the schools, and the schools make purchase decisions. So we knew what we had in the spring when we passed the budget. We didn't know what would get added to it. So we'd like to give you an update now on what we're doing on the mental health front, what we had in the budget, what we've added to the budget with the school-based funds that their teams sit together and work on. Latony asked me if we could give this update. Thought it was a great idea. Yolanda Johnson and Kim Wells are here to give the update.
Dr. Johnson, Director Wells, please. Thank you.
Good evening again. Ms. Wells and I are going to co-present, if that's all right. Wanted to just try to just share a little bit about what we've been doing, the ongoing work that we're doing in the district. And just so that, when you talk about mental health, that's a really big bucket. So you have the mental health bucket, you have behavior, and you have social emotional learning. And the three of those intersect. So as we share, particularly when I talk about our counselors, and I'm a school counselor fan, our counselors take on many roles in our district, and they are working students around skills to be successful around their academic development, their post-secondary goals, as well as their emotional health and well-being. And the school committee approved our policy, our school counseling policy, and that really is a framework around how our counselors deliver services to our students. It's individual counseling, group counseling, large group presentations, et cetera. And we have at our schools, we have City Connects coordinators, we have graduation coaches at the high school level, and we have a host of other support staff in our schools that support the overall well-being of our students. As you heard last year, we have a professional development plan that centers this work. And we've had work around equity, diversity, racial equity, as well as cultural considerations that our counselors have had training in, trauma, self-care, cognitive behavioral techniques to support our students around regulation. And this year, we rolled out our PD on suicide prevention and intervention. That was provided to our school adjustment counselors, our school counselors, as well as our graduation coaches. We also saw an uptick in non-suicidal self-injury, and at the elementary school level. So we had that professional development to really support our staff around how to support students who are cutting, et cetera. With that, we also had 16 of our deans and teachers of department trained. They are mental health first aid responders in our schools, and that happened this school year. We're continuing this work. We are going to be rolling out empowerment clubs in our schools that really focus on mental health, and it empowers our young people to talk about mental health. It's not a clinical group, it's an empowerment group, and it's very similar to the rest of the clubs that we have in our schools. And we are continuing to roll out our secondary SEL work and mental health work. And so that's what I have for you at this time. I'm sure if Madam Chair requests another update, there will be more to add. So I don't know if you have any questions, but at this time, I'm going to turn it over to Kim, because she'll really be able to talk about how this is operationalized in our schools with our staff.
Are there any questions of Dr. Johnson?
Not yet.
Okay, not yet, okay. Director Wells?
Good evening.
Good evening.
So the piece of the presentation that I'm going to provide is just an update to the counseling and support services that we have within all the schools, but particularly the high schools. So on this graph, you can see all of the high schools at the secondary level and what the number of school and adjustment counselors are. So if you take a look at the Conservatory of the Arts this year, they have 3 school or school adjustment counselors, which is an addition of 1. The school purchased an extra adjustment counselor this year. And if you look to the right of that total counseling staff, you will see the additional support staff that provide additional supports to students throughout the day. So Conservatory of Arts, in addition to their 3 school counselors, has 1 City Connects worker, 2 AmeriCorps workers, and 1 counseling intern. If you go down the rows, you'll see Renaissance has 4 school adjustment counselors, 1 graduation coach, a City Connects worker, and 2 River Valley clinicians who come into the building 5 times a week to provide additional clinical services and supports to students. Central this year has 10 school counselors or adjustment counselors, and that +1 means that they purchased an additional counselor this year to support the work. They also have 3.5 graduation coaches, 1 City Connects worker, 1 dean of students, and 1 Center for Human Development clinician who also comes into the building. Putnam added an additional adjustment counselor this year, bringing their total to 10 school counselors or adjustment counselors. They also have 1 graduation coach, 1 City Connects worker, 2 student life coordinators who support students in their daily social emotional learning needs. SciTech added 2 counselors this year, bringing their total to 8 school or adjustment counselors. In addition, they have 2 graduation coaches, 1 City Connects worker, 1 River Valley clinician who comes into the building to support students, and 1 community resource liaison. Springfield High School has 3 school counselors or adjustment counselors, and they have 2 school-based interventionists who also support students. Springfield Public Day High has 5 school or adjustment counselors and 2.5 school-based interventionists, and our virtual school has 3 school or adjustment counselors, and they, in fact, the +1 indicates that they purchased an additional counselor this year. They also have a City Connects coordinator. What you'll see on the next page, we broke down for you, was where the schools actually purchased school-by-school additional purchases this year, because I know that that was something that the school committee had requested that we take a look at. So you will see on the next few slides where each of the schools beyond, where they purchased additional personnel, either in the form of counseling or in the form of school support staff and or resources. So as you'll see at the Conservatory of Arts this year for the 2023-2024 school year, they purchased a new adjustment counselor. They have 2 additional AmeriCorps staff and 1 counseling intern. And they're decided to invest in a program called Cartwheel. And you'll see this appear on some of the slides, so I just want to give you a little bit of an update as to what Cartwheel is. Cartwheel is a 100% telehealth, mental health partner for schools and families that has been working, in fact, in other school districts throughout the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. Why is it a need for us? Because Cartwheel provides rapid tiered mental health support services to students and to families. And unlike many of our clinics and mental health supports throughout the state, when there's such a long wait list for children and families to be seen, Cartwheel, when they partner with a school, will work with the school counselors and support team to make sure that a child is met with a licensed clinician within 7 to 10 days of the referral, which is extremely hard to find in today's day and age when the needs are so great. So what happens during the initial meeting when a child is referred to Cartwheel is that a case management plan is put together for the student, which includes evidence-based model that includes anywhere from 2 to 4 months of services for students with the possibility of providing additional services for children up to 6 months. There is a plan that includes cognitive behavioral therapy and other skill groups for students. There's a medication evaluation with a licensed child adolescent psychiatrist. And there's one-to-one parent guidance with a licensed parent as needed. There's also care navigation. So beyond the 2 to 4 months or 6 months if necessary, care navigation is done with the families to determine if a child requires additional services beyond the 6 months. Cartwheel will reach out to surrounding clinics and therapists throughout the area to see if they can then provide opportunities for a student intake within some local areas if that need continues. Cartwheel is 100% telehealth, so families don't have to travel to see people. They work between the hours of 8 in the morning and 8 in the evening, so the opportunity for those students to receive support extends well beyond the school day, which is often a need that we find difficult to provide. And schools, it's actually really quite interesting how it's financially sustainable. So what happens in a Cartwheel partnership with a school is that if you were to take a partnership where a school might say, we want to provide 150 slots for students, on average, those 150 slots are the equivalent of about 2,000 hours of clinical support. Basically, that equates to about $125 of fully loaded hourly costs from licensed clinicians. And by the way, all of the Cartwheel staff are all licensed clinicians. And they represent 8 different languages that they speak. So they are, in fact, very much culturally relevant in terms of the needs of our families in our city. So under normal circumstances, those 150 students at the cost of $125 per hour for 2,000 hours of care would approximately be about $250,000. Cartwheel works directly with insurance companies and does all the direct billing, and on average, the health insurers will cover approximately $165,000 of that $250,000 cost, leaving approximately $85,000 that the school would contribute. And so what our schools have decided to do who are partnering with Cartwheel is they are using their finances and their allocations to support that, because what we've recognized is that the need for children to be seen and to potentially have some clinical and mental health support is there. And so you will see throughout your PowerPoint slide and throughout the information packet that's in your folder, that there are a number of schools who have selected to engage with this because they really want to be able to provide services to students as quickly as possible and have decided that they want to invest their money. Just a couple more things about Cartwheel in case they come up, because they certainly came up when we met to talk with them. Any families who are on Medicaid or Mass Health have a $0 out-of-pocket cost. And if there are in-network, families with in-network insurance, they would just pay the standard copay. But by the school contributing to this, it makes it very financially stable and available to families without having to worry about the costs associated with that. So I just wanted to cover that, so when you see it in the different school-by-school breakdowns, you know what that is. Moving forward, Renaissance School, continuing on, has 2 new counseling interns, and the principal of that school is working with the counseling with the college to potentially add another 2 more for a total of 4. And they also have 2 River Valley therapists that come to Renaissance 5 days a week. Last year, they used to come to Renaissance 3 days a week. That has since been increased to 5. On the next page, you will see Central High School. Central has specifically added this year 1 new adjustment counselor, 1 new dean of students, 1 new mental health clinician from the Center for Human Development, and they are investing in Cartwheel. Putnam Vocational Technical Academy has 1 new adjustment counselor and 2 student life coordinators who provide academic and social emotional support and mentoring to students as identified through their dues data. SciTech, they have 1 new adjustment counselor, 1 new school counselor, and again, they're investing in Cartwheel. Our virtual school has 1 school counselor, and they are also investing in Cartwheel. And then, just for additional information regarding our elementary and middle schools, wanted to provide you with this information as well. The schools have added across the school sites 8 new adjustment counselors, 1 new dean of students, and 26 school-based interventionists. And if you look at the last page, we tried to break it down for you in terms of the budget. So the district mental health support budget for school year 2023-2024, when you look at the funding sources across all areas, is $42,963,957. And when you look at the additional school-based mental health and student support services that we just went through on the PowerPoint slide, that's an additional $3,974,306 that the schools have invested of their own money to improve and increase mental health supports for students. You will also see in your packet, besides the sheets, went a little bit more in depth and in detail for you, so you can read that. And if you have any questions, please feel free.
Thank you, Director Wells. Any questions or comments?
I have
Vice Chair
some
Nance?
questions. Oh, you do.
Vice Chair Nance? Wait, okay. Ms. Hurst?
Sure. Ms. Wells, can you share with me what are the plus ones on the side of the adjustment counselors?
Sure.
On that graph?
So I added the plus ones because I was going off of the FY 22-23 school year last year. So if you were to look at the Conservatory of Arts, last year they had 2 school counselors.
Okay,
The
so this
plus
is
1
delta.
is just showing that they purchased an additional 1, and so they have an increase of up to 3 this year.
Because I was going to ask, what did they have last year? And then I think I wanted to ask, how did some schools opt into the Cartwheel and others didn't?
So we had a meeting with Cartwheel over the summer where we looked at opportunities for students. We decided not to do a district level decision. We decided to give schools the opportunity because we wanted to see what the pilot would look like. And so that's actually a pilot where we wanted to be able to really provide opportunities for students, and that was kind of made in concert with the people from Cartwheel. We talked about the possibility of a district piece, but then we talked about the capacity and really trying to do well with it. And so we talked with schools, and those that were really eager and excited, we were able to move that forward. So it was an individual decision more than a district-wide mandate.
And what's the difference between the district mental health support budget and the additional school-based mental health purchases?
So the district-based budget is the budget that goes towards the district allocations that are provided to every school. So the number of counselors that are full-time equivalents based on the school enrollment, the City Connects coordinators that are already provided, so the variety of services. The additional school-based mental health purchases are the additional purchases, the +1 counselors, the +2 counselors, the cartwheel program, the school-based interventionists, the monies where the schools above and beyond their allocations have decided to purchase additional supports for students. And so that $3 million is the aggregate of all of those services that schools have purchased.
That was the increase in School Opportunity Act money that we gave directly to the schools that they could make those decisions with.
And could you share what is being done to promote that these services exist or have been amplified, seeing as though that was one of the concerns that came up when we heard from the community about mental health services for youth?
Yeah, so we've been working together at the schools to make sure that during grade level assemblies with students at the beginning of the year, that information is disseminated to them. Some of the schools have started with putting that information out and available to families on their websites. So one of the things you'll see in one of the schools that's already happened is that there is a link on one of the school's websites where if you click on that, it will take you to the school counseling resources that are available to students in English and Spanish. And so schools have been working with students to make sure that they're aware of not only the services that are available to them, but the areas that they can access within the buildings. And so that's been a push to make sure that that's made clear to everybody moving forward.
Could I follow up on that, what Mrs. Hurst just asked? I think when we discussed, and I think why Mrs. Hurst asked the question is, we talked about this year, once we knew what schools got, trying to find a way to even publicize it more, like on our own website. That link that you just described, can that be done for, is it possible to do it for all schools? Or can we put it on so the parents, on our website, the department's website, so parents know where to go, another place where they can go to find out what's available?
So that's something we can definitely work on. It is not up at all school websites, but that is the hope and the plan moving forward. But yes, that's something we can work on and revisit.
We met with every principal after that meeting that Denise was referring to and said, you know, a lot of you folks are doing a great job in so many areas, but sometimes people don't know all the services that are available. So we asked them at the building level also to try to get more information out to the families, hence the meetings and everything else. But we also talked to Azell to do some things district-wide so people know all the different complicated services that are available in all the buildings. We'll keep working on that because you can never do enough communication.
And Mr. Mayor, one more, on the cartwheel? Yes. If that proves as successful as my gut tells me it might be, do you have an idea what it would cost to be a district-wide?
They actually submitted a district-wide proposal to us. We can get you that information. I just don't have it available to me. But yes, they actually did a school-by-school proposal based on the number of students being served in schools, and then they did a district-wide proposal, and the district-wide proposal was also based on the number of students served. So some of the schools wanted to do their own because they wanted to service more children in a larger capacity. So it's something we can get, yes, but it's based on the number of students served, whether it's school by school or at a district level.
We did get really
I'd love
good.
us to see the district-wide amount.
Yeah, we thought about that. We did get good feedback from some other districts, but we also wanted some of our schools to try it to see if, when you peel back the onion, is it as good as you think it is? So the schools that wanted to pilot it this year, we let them pilot it and they had the funding to do it because we gave them all the opportunity.
Yeah, my thought process being that if it proves as successful as it very well could be, that it might be something before we go and when we start talking about carryover funds, this might be a way to target some additional monies towards mental health that I think we probably would like to be prepared to have that discussion.
We'll certainly take a look at that.
Thank you, Mr. Collins. I know
Mr. Mayor, thank you.
Ms. Gresham?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So is there any support service added to Commerce High School?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear.
Are there any support services added to Commerce?
I didn't report on Commerce only because we don't it's overseen by the empowerment zone, so I don't have the answer to, for you. I apologize.
I think Dr. Johnson is signaling they increased to 3. Dr. Johnson, could
I
you?
believe there was an increase. I do know that they
have
do have 3 counselors there that I
We can
have
find-
the opportunity
we can
to
find
work with. So they have 3, and they're school adjustment counselors
Okay,
at Commerce.
all right.
I know
thank you.
they had a reduction in staffing, but I do know they have 3 adjustment counselors.
Thank you.
They've had some drop in student count also, so I think that impacts the staffing, you know.
Dr. Johnson, can on my alma mater, that's, because it's been carved up, that's a portion, that there's other schools that are in there that have their own
Yes.
counselors.
Yes, they do.
Yes.
So I don't want people to think that there's only 3 for the whole school.
Not 3 for the whole
You have-
school,
you
because
have-
you have honors,
yeah,
and
Honors
honors
Academy.
has 3,
Right.
and you have.
They have their separate.
Right,
okay.
emergence. I
Yeah.
You
get
have
to work with
emergence
them
and now you
also.
have Aspire. So they have 4 different programs and they all
And they do
have
have
counselors. But
counselors.
they have financial independence, they're principals to make those decisions.
Okay.
So, thank you for
Thank you.
clarifying.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, Mr. Gonzalez?
Yeah, I just had a couple of questions. I just wanted to echo Ms. Gresham's questions on the empowerment zone, because I know that there was a group of community stakeholders and students that had concerns on the mental health, and I met with them, and I'm pretty sure others have met with them, and a majority of them are from the zone. So if we could get an update from the zone, that would be helpful, because constituents do reach out in regards to what they're doing on that end. Well, I do appreciate this evening's presentation. My other bit was the 42 million that's there. Can we get disaggregated data on that? So 2 things. Could we get the ZEP presentation on their mental health, and then could we get those numbers disaggregated?
Absolutely, that's in our budget and it's already been submitted to the state.
Okay, very well. And then another piece that I know came up with meeting with students. Can someone describe, either you, Mr. Wiles, or Dr. Johnson, how students access the mental health services that are needed inside their school buildings?
And Mr. Gonzalez, just to let you know, I'm sure with Superintendent Warwick and Vice Chair Naylor and myself, we will, when we attend our Empowerment Board zone meetings, we will bring up on a mental health issue.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Sure, Mr. Gonzalez. In our schools, particularly, we have school social workers and adjustment counselors in all of our schools, K-12. At the secondary level, we have more school counselors than we have adjustment counselors, which is not the issue. My point in saying that is, when a student needs to see a counselor, they have access to their grade level counselor, and depending on what the need is, then that counselor will refer or send that student to the school social worker or the school adjustment counselor. So, we have plenty of opportunities for students to be able to connect with their counselor, and at the beginning of the school year, and they're still, I believe, rolling this out now, is they're making presentations to, at their extended days, to even educate teachers on who they are and what they do and how to ensure that students have access to their counselors. And yes?
Go ahead, Mr.
Dr. Johnson, sorry to cut you off. I'm really talking about if you can really peel it back for myself, the colleagues, and those that are watching at home, from the young person who's sitting in a classroom, that they need to have a conversation with someone. Take me as far as there. Just so I can get an understanding. And the only reason that I'm asking for the viewers at home and also my colleagues is because constituents come forward, with ideas of how these systems work. And I think it's important that we understand them just as much as the content of the resources that are available. To me, are the vehicles by which our biggest stakeholder in this whole system, which is our students, how they access them.
Thank you. Well, first, I'll start by saying we are at the Back to School Fair, and you can't miss us with our big blue tent, and we have a host of families that come around. And we really do that. Even though all of our schools are there, we make sure that the counselors are there because for the reasons you state, it's important that the community and families know that we exist. If a student is in a classroom and needs the support of a counselor, they simply go to their teacher, and their teacher can refer them to their counselor. You know, some schools have referral systems where the teacher will complete a referral for the student to be able to go, or they will directly send that student to see their counselor. It's different by school, but there's always a way for students to see their counselor. Does that
Dr.
help
Johnson,
you?
has there been any ideas on how we empower, especially our secondary students, to in other avenues, technologically speaking? I know we have the cartwheel in some of the schools, even if it's a QR code or an alert that they can fill out. I know we have the Yonder pouches now, but I know each of the kids have a laptop. They can go somewhere if they needed to do that electronically. I mean, what are the other ways that we're getting innovative around this to make sure that students don't fall through the cracks? The only reason I'm saying this is because there's been several students come forward and they say, you know, I get the pass, I go down to the counseling office, which is going to be inherent because of how many students we have in our system, and it's no indictment against our school district, but just how do we do this better? And the counselors are busy, so I just proceed with the rest of my day and I never get a follow-up on this. How do we do better on this? How are we tracking those things? How are we tracking those alerts electronically, aside from the teacher just sending the kid down there? I mean, is there a system that we're using?
No, I think you raise a great point, Mr. Gonzalez. I mean, our students are able to access their counselors. We do have, when we were at the Back to School Fair, we had a QR code so that they could, you know, receive the information on how to, for parents and students on how they can contact the school counselor. Students at many of our schools, I know that Putnam and even SciTech, they're big on QR codes so that students could scan it and receive information. I am very, very directive with the counselors about knowing and being visible and present and working with their students. I'm very committed to that. So every time that I am with them, it's around how are we having those touch points with our students so that students know that they're available. And another way, Mr. Gonzalez, that we'll address that is through hopefully those empowerment clubs, because those empowerment clubs will become a place where students will have agency and voice around needs, and they'll be able to rally themselves around understanding what are the services in a school. You know, I mean, there isn't a answer that I think will fit for every situation, but being visible, we have our deans, we have our teachers of department, we have our assistant principals and all leaders to be able to send students to where they need to be.
But Dr. Johnson, again, going back to my question, is there or is there not a management information system that specifically tracks when a student reaches out for mental health to track, be it a clinical note or an update? Is there a management information system in place for our counselors that doesn't only interface with the practitioners, but also with those that are reaching out for the help?
We don't have a management system. We have our school counselor accountability report, and our school counselor accountability reports that are sent to the principals and myself. It has categories on the number of mental health referrals that they've received based on if a student has come to them for that. But other than that, we do not have a student information system. We do have our student success plans that note when a student is referred to STAT or anything of that nature, but we do not track it other than in our school counselor accountability reports when they are documenting their interaction and their work with our students.
And considering the level of mental health concern across the Commonwealth, do you think that that's enough?
I think with the increased need of mental health, the increased mental health needs in our community, we have protocols in place for our students to receive the support that we hope that they need, if we're aware of it. I mean, if we're aware of it, we can respond to it. If we're not aware of it, we're unable to respond to it. But we have leaned into the mental health needs of our students. And I'll just say, when we think about, post-secondary success, we know that there are non-academic barriers to students when they leave high school and they graduate and go to college that are mental health related. So we are leaning into that. Do we have a student information system that tracks it, so to speak? No, but we do enter certain information in our student information system when a student is referred to STAT and what the nature of that might be. And our counselors documenting every time they see a student around academic advisement, emotional health and well-being, and post-secondary advising.
Yeah, thank you, Dr.
I can share a
Johnson.
copy of
I guess
that
my
with.
question was just around
You're
encouraging
welcome.
for us to continue.
And I'm happy to
look-
share a copy of our template with the school committee if that's something that Madam Chair would like to have. It will show you how we document it. And just one point of clarification, we're rolling out a new way on how we're documenting our services. So we're piloting a new form this year.
Thank you, Dr. Johnson. Thank you, Mr. Gonzalez. Vice Chair Naylor, please.
So, thank you so much for that, and thank you so much, Josiah, Mr. Gonzalez, for those questions. Kind of leads me to a couple of semi-questions, semi-comments that I have, and then I do have a couple of questions as well. The first thing is that I know that I'm the chair of the technology subcommittee, and I know that there will be some updates that will be coming up in future agendas, just as far as different apps and different things that are available for families. And one of the things that Azelle was sharing with me is that they have moved around and are really trying to do a better job of streamlining where families find information. And one of the things that I didn't think about when we were having that conversation is around mental health and counseling resources. So if we can add that as part of that tab to tell families when they go to that tab on the website how to access those services in their schools, or who to call, or what that protocol is, that will be extremely helpful. And then the other thing that I wanted to ask is that I know we have a wellness committee, but we don't, and excuse me if I'm misunderstanding this, with the wellness committee, I feel like it's more focused on health and food and things like that. Is mental health part of that wellness committee that Michelle Balch kind of spearheads?
We do. I do work closely with Michelle. We are, as a part of the strategic plan, it's student wellness and staff wellness, but it's not just our physical wellness, it's the emotional wellness as well. And one thing, you did say something, Madam Chair, that I forgot about. And we are rolling out a new website for counselors, and on that website will be a tab with community resources and information. So sometimes when you're just in it, it's hard to remember everything. But we will have the ability technologically. Gianna Allentuck is leading up that effort around our branding and information. So we are working on that, and it does have the shell of the program. The website does have mental health services in the district and in the community.
Okay, and that would be, it would be super helpful for even, because I know we have things accessible in different ways, but I know especially as a parent myself, sometimes when I'm looking for stuff, it's if I don't Google it, I'm not finding it. So I'm really excited about the updates and the new website and everything, because I think it will streamline some of that. But along the lines, and the reason why I asked the question about the subcommittee was that, or committee, however it's called, is that it would be really good to have some of those youth voices as part of that committee to talk about the mental wellness, because we all know mental health, a lot of times when we talk about it, is seen as taboo and stigmatized as oh, you must be crazy, or you must be having a breakdown or a meltdown. And you can be having a mental health circumstance and it not look like having a meltdown, right? So mental health and wellness is just as important as how do you maintain that? How do you have self-care and things of that nature? And so it would be really nice to have young people also have a voice in that committee. I know that I represent the school committee and I try to attend those meetings as much as possible, but I think that having the youth would be very helpful for that. And what leads me to is, do we have a mental and emotional wellness plan? like a strategic plan we have, a marketing plan we might have. Do we have a plan around mental and emotional wellness for our students? Because as I think about what Mr. Gonzalez is asking, there's simple things that we can add to, like, for example, if I need to meet with somebody really quickly in the business world, I go in Calendly and I can go right on their calendar and I already can book an appointment to go and see that person, and they don't have to wait or have a middle person assign that. Like, if we could have something in place like that for our students where, yes, a QR code, it gives them the QR code to their counselor's calendar, and here are the times that they're available to meet with students, and automatically they can book themselves onto that person's calendar. That would be so much easier and take the stress out of, I have to now talk to an adult, I have to do this, I have to do that. And then the counselor can send for them, and that way the students don't have the burden of always having to deal with explaining to people why they need to go see a counselor. Because I think that was one of the things that we heard from the students, that they need to see a counselor, and now they have to explain to their teacher, which their teachers shouldn't be doing, but some of these teachers do, put the kid under a 3rd degree, like, why you need to go see the counselor again? Oh, no, you're just trying to cut class, or whatever the case may be. So I think that would be, just as a quick brainstorm, throwing it out, but having a mental emotional wellness plan would really help us to think about how do we continue to be progressive in the reality that mental health and wellness is an epidemic in our country, and it's absolutely an epidemic with our students, and we've never seen it on this level or magnitude. So we're all trying to learn, how do we deal with this epidemic? And our parents are in crisis. Well, half of us are in crisis. I mean, we're functioning, but we all had so many things happen through the pandemic that a lot of us have figured out how to maintain, but our young people still don't know how to deal, and that's just the reality of the situation. So anyways, I didn't mean to go on forever on that, but it's something near and dear to me, and so I'm very passionate about it. And I don't know if you want to speak to that before I ask my last question, which is not related to anything that I just said.
I was just going to say, point taken. I mean, we are equally as concerned and about our students' well-being, and it is a lot to unpack. That's why I started with those 3 areas, because, you know, each of those areas alone, behavior, social, emotional, and mental health, are major areas to unpack, and they all intersect. So you have to figure out what's a behavior issue versus what is a mental health issue, and what is a mental health issue versus it's just a student doesn't have the skills around self-regulation. You know, so it's a lot to unpack. I mean, I do work with the community-based agencies, and even encouraging them to level up some of their work, because everyone can't do everything in a school day.
Right.
It's impossible. You know, we are places of teaching and learning, and we need to maintain that so that our schools are safe places. And I mean, you know, I talk to agencies a lot, and I encourage them to think about ways that they can also, you know, expand their work in many of the youth-serving agencies. Our kids leave school and they go somewhere.
Yeah.
Okay? And we have to make sure that there are those services that extend in our community on weekends and on evenings.
Thank you. And it kind of leads me to my question. One of my last questions is with the Cartwheel program, you said that it is available to students outside of the school hours. Is it also available throughout the summer to families?
So yes, depending on the case management, they did say that they would make it available. They also said that if there was a real need on the weekends, that was also something that they could examine, which is why they do an individual student-by-student case management plan. So that's all part of sort of that intake within the 7 to 10 days.
Thank you. And can you provide us with just a little more detail, not now, but like for us to review kind of like what's included in Cartwheel, like what kind of services, how do we keep track of, you know, what that looks like for folks? Because I imagine if it's in person, there's certain protocols versus when things are telehealth. So helping us to better understand how are we ensuring that students are, you know, cared for safely.
Yes.
That would be really helpful.
Yes, we have some information that they provided us during one of our meetings in the summer, so I can get that to the superintendent, and he can certainly send that forward to you.
Okay, thank
It
you.
was impressive. I mean, a lot, we looked at it, and a lot of our principals took a look at it and bought in right away because it was an impressive array of services.
It sounds
And that
amazing.
flexibility to have services, like you said, weekends, summers, nights, where, our counselors aren't necessarily there, was really, really impressive. Now we'll see how it works on the ground, but we'll get you the materials. They were very impressive.
Well, I love it too because I think about the reality that even with adding adjustment counselors and more staff, our staff are still stretched, regardless, right? We can't add enough. We don't have the funding to add enough staff to really be at the level that we would want to operate, right? And so having that external resource really lifts some of that burden and allows for kids to get what they need in a way that's really specific and unique to them, which I think is phenomenal. So thank you all for that. And then my last question is kind of back directed to the superintendent. We talked about maybe right before during the summer, there was money that Governor Healy approved specific to mental health. And we were in the process of trying to figure out if that money was something we had to apply for or it would be a direct allocation to the schools. Did we get any more information on that?
I know we referred out to our grants management office, so we'll check on that.
Okay.
I did refer that right away to our grants piece, and they're very aggressive, so I'm sure they're working on that.
We also have, and thank you for your work on this, Vice Chair Naylor. We also have the Youth Advisory Group that we formed, and with the, South End Community Center, MLK, that works directly with BHN, and that is driven by the youth and other things. And also today, on a subset group of community centers, I met with where my old South End Community Center had, and my time with D.A. Bennett with the juvenile hardcore borderline probationers. We're also going to pool resources. We'll have an announcement coming up as early as next week on shared resources with a lot of those community centers too, which once you get into that, working with the police department, once you get into those community centers, a lot of opportunities arise besides recreation, education, job, workforce. But if a young man or young lady's having a little problem, they can direct to the resources that we have, so it's important.
Mr. Mayor, may
Mr.
I
Yeah.
ask some questions? Thank you. I wanted to ask a follow-up to Dr. Johnson on one of the questions that Mr. Gonzalez asked.
They didn't.
So I'm wondering, in whatever management system we do have, if there was, God forbid, a tragedy, is there a way that we're able to go back and say, yes, this student sought help, yes, this student asked for help, no, this student did not? Like, are we tracking it that granularly?
We do have a protocol that will document if a student is a threat to themselves or others.
Say again?
We do have a protocol that documents if a student is a threat to themselves or others.
No, what if they're not, what if they don't necessarily express a threat, but they've said, hey, I'd like to go see, like Ms. Naylor said, I want to go see my counselor. Like, is there documentation that a student may have asked their third period teacher to go see a counselor? Like, and because they wanted to talk about X, Y, or Z?
No.
I guess that's what I'm wondering, like, how are we tracking it? Because we know as social workers that you're not going to necessarily immediately self-disclose that you are at risk or contemplating hurting yourself or others. So I guess I'm wondering, how are we tracking how much or how many requests there are to being able to see someone or talk to someone?
I mean, I think you ask a great question. I mean, we do have our protocols to document our efforts and our work with students, even if it's, whether it's a threat or not, when someone is working with a student. Our teachers have been very good when they've noticed, a student is in need of help, even if it's not outwardly, distress. Ms. Hurst, you ask a great question, and I think that that is something that leaves many school districts and personnel wondering how could they have helped if there was something unfortunate that happened. I mean, we just don't have a management system that documents, I don't know if our teachers are in our classroom saying, Yolanda did ask to go see Mrs. Wells and makes a note.
Yeah.
That's not what happens, but I mean, it is definitely something that I can take and explore with a group of counselors in a PLC that I have around how we could better
It would
document.
seem to be that would be a gap, like that would be one of those places where there could be a potential void, right, for that really quiet student who's not going to necessarily come forward, who just sort of flies under the radar, that everyone thinks, oh, they're fine, they come in every day, they're an average student, they're not disruptive. And we know that everybody's profile differs. So that's what made me want to follow up on that particular question, because I do think that there is value in trying to figure out how do you track or monitor or gauge that, because it is a crisis and it's not only the most extreme cases that we're seeing anymore.
Absolutely.
Or we're not seeing them until they become extreme, but they have had they've exhibited some sort of behavior at some point that folks may have just sort of overlooked because it wasn't disruptive or because it wasn't extreme on one side or the other.
Which was a part of why we wanted those deans and teachers of department to have that, the training on mental health first aid, because they are often, interacting with students in ways that maybe the teacher or the counselor may not see. So we're trying, in terms of reducing our risk, having, folks in place to really understand and be able to respond to the overall health and well-being of our students. I mean, based on what we know about when students, mental illness and when students are distressed, you're right, sometimes it's very subtle. And that's why I think oftentimes people have a lot of feelings about when something happens and they were not aware, because it's very hard to sometimes do and be everywhere and know when to respond if it wasn't very, directly stated. So we are, I can definitely take that under advisement and see how we can further develop ways and protocols to try to address that.
Sure, thank you. The second question that I had was about how are we, and I think you talked about like the wellness committee, but how are we centering the voices of those, of the students? So, this was really lifted up last year during budget season. It's not just a hot topic, like it's a real thing that's happening, right? And so I'm wondering, we're all adults sitting here making lots of decisions about how many adjustment counselors to add, let's put in cartwheel, like how much conversations are being had with the students around, like, when we get to, I don't know, the halfway point at the holiday break or at the end of the year, are we thinking about having conversations with students and saying, what'd you think about cartwheel? Could you tell that we added an additional guidance counselor or adjustment counselor to your school? Because, the famous saying is not about us without us. And so how are we centering these students' voices? And then lastly, I'll just say that I do think, or I thought that at some point we were going to discuss this in a working session. And so it's great to be discussing it now, but I do think that considering all the publicity this topic got, that it would be really good for folks to hear about what has been done or is happening now, whether it was in response to that advocacy or not. But that they should know what is happening.
So I can tell you anecdotally that some of the students who came out last year, who actually raised concerns, have had informal conversations with principals, talking about their recognition of the fact that principals have put adjustment or additional counselors in the building. So it's actually been picked up by some of the students whose voices we heard last year. So I think that that's encouraging. I think it's informal, on an informal basis right now, but I made note to talk with principals and with leadership teams, because I do think that there's a way to lift the student voice in this process through their student advisory councils. And so, just to kind of get a feel for how do we think those things are going. So I made a note to talk with the principals to think about how we could potentially do that.
Yeah, and I've spoken to Jose Escribano about that. He's working with the student councils so that we can really focus on that student voice and increase that student voice so we can get feedback on those things.
Thank you.
And I know that youth group also had reached out to those students personally to get involved with them and speak with them. So that was facilitated too. Some did or some didn't, or their leader from PVP or whatever. But the youth group and led by the youth group, MBA, did reach out to those.
And I also think that the empowerment clubs that Dr. Johnson mentioned is another opportunity and way to bring the students in and to lift their voices. So there are a few things that we're working on and formalizing that will be able to get you more information from the student perspective moving forward.
And I know Mr. Gonzalez wants to, but I think the other point, and Ms. Hurst brought up a good point, in this age of social media and tic-tac-toe, TikTok, whatever it is, you documenting when somebody says, my child or the child, received no assistance whatsoever. And we can go back to saying, well, no, we documented, here's the assistance that we did give, tried to give on it. Again, we want the best for the student, but there's always two sides to a story. Unfortunately, social media, that gets out and, without our side of the story. And I know there's medical protocol, which you can say certain things, you can't not say certain things on it, but I know through the superintendent and the administration, we've made substantial increases on it. We just have to get the word out more.
We have to get the word out more. I know Dr. Johnson has the counselors track every counseling session with every student.
So you have it. Okay.
And say, yeah, Johnny did get 5 counseling sessions, or
And that's-
here's the dates. And
that's in general, doesn't
That's
say
all
anything
tracked.
specific, but yeah.
Every student,
Yeah,
So,
okay, good.
yeah.
Mr. Gonzalez, I know you wanted to say something?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to echo everyone's sentiments around the student voice. And I just want to remind everyone that when we brought back the full effect of the Student Advisory Council afforded in the Mass General Law, that entity, I believe, is the entity that us as a body, we should be leaning on, because while the student advisory councils, plural, are utilized by all of the schools, and the empowerment clubs that Dr. Johnson noted, those certainly would not inform us in terms of our policymaking decisions or budgetary matters, as much as that student advisory council should and hopefully would in the future. So Ms. Wells, do we have an update on that? I know back in June, the law did call for them to be elected. Do we have an update? Have they been elected? Have they had their first meeting? And do we have meeting minutes that substantiate that they've come together for us to consider? And here's another piece of that. You can pick apart this as you want. Was this mental health update, was it filtered through them to get their feedback? Again, this is the Student Advisory Council that would be informing the school committee as afforded under Mass General Law.
So I can provide you an update on the student advisory councils. The student advisory councils at the school levels they have held recently their elections for their student advisory councils. They are completing the process of the student advisory councils electing one member to the district student advisory council. That will be happening within the next week or so. And then once those students have been identified, Jose Escribano from FACE and myself will be scheduling our first meeting. We're working on developing an agenda where we meet with them and then really start to gauge developing norms and developing situations whereby their voices are really lifted and brought forward to the school committee. So the answer to your question is yes, the schools have completed their elections. They're working on electing their member to the district, and as soon as that takes place, we'll be gathering the team to hold our first meeting in preparation for the first school committee meeting of that council in November, I believe on the 5th.
Okay, and Mr. Superintendent, a question for you. I know that under that same law, it affords the flexibility to the department to hire a coordinator if it deemed necessary to do that work. I know that Ms. Wells and Mr. Escribano do phenomenal work. I'm just curious to hear from your point of view operationally if that's needed and if they can really sustain the development of a robust body such as this Student Advisory Council with all these different students.
Yeah, that's something we'd look at, but Jose Escribano has a team, and we're starting off, and if he needs more support, we'll get it to him, but he hasn't come forward with that right now. But Jose does have a team, so it's more than one person. But if there's more staff needed, we'll certainly work with him on that. But right now, we want his team to work on that.
All right, thank you, Superintendent, and thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Gonzalez. Any other questions or comments?
No.
Thank you for being so succinct there, Attorney Murphy Peters. Thank you. Okay. Thank you, Dr. Johnson, Director Wells. Thank you. We need a little levity. With that, we'll move to reports of standing committees. A is Student Relation Parent Concerns, Ms. Gresham.
No report, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Ms. Gresham. B is Buildings Maintenance Committee, Mr. Collins.
No report, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. C is Legislative Contracts Committee, Mr. Gonzalez.
No report, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. D is Curriculum Programs Committee, Ms. Hurst.
It was already before the body, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Ms. Hurst. E is Budget and Finance Committee, Mr. Collins.
No report, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. F is Vocational Education Committee, Attorney Murphy.
No report.
Thank you, Peter. G is Technology Committee, Vice Chair Monroe Naylor.
We will be having some updates in I think it's the next meeting or the following meeting, we'll have some updates for the school committee.
Thank you, Vice Chair Naylor. H is School Safety Committee, Ms. Gresham.
No report, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. I is Diversity, Equity, Inclusion, Ms. Hurst, please.
Oh, I'm sorry, no
diversity.
report, Mr. Mayor.
Peter, what are you doing down there for Christ's sake?
I didn't do anything.
Okay, all right.
I was actually really reading.
Diversity, Equity, Inclusion, Ms. Hurst, please.
Oh, no
Okay,
report,
thank
Mr.
you.
Mayor.
Peter, okay, thank you. We're just kidding. We needed a levity. Report of the Superintendent. Superintendent Ward, please.
Thank you, Mayor. I know it's been a long night, so I'll be quick with this. So we had a great week this week. We had the MSBA in for a senior study on the Harena School, and they also looked at Kensington, White, and Washington schools. They spent the whole day with us. It's a very positive meeting, and in the past, where we've had a senior study, we've gotten a project. So we had the lead team out from the MSBA out. Very productive meeting, and one of their comments was, what's the secret sauce in Springfield? What caused you to get all these building projects? And then at the end of the regular tour, I took them because they wanted to see DeBerry Swan completed, and we took them on a private tour of DeBerry Swan. But they've been a great partner with us, and we had a very productive day, and I had a very good, had a good look at Harena and some of the problems associated with that building. So I have a very good feel. We've never gotten to this point with a senior study where we haven't gotten a project, not that anything's guaranteed. And it's more competitive than it ever was because every project costs more than it used to because the building costs have gone up astronomically. So you're competing with communities to get projects. But we left with a very, very positive, good feeling. And, the first question was, do you have the capacity to execute a project right away if it was approved? And the mayor jumped in and said, we'll do it right away. And they were thrilled to hear that. So a very, very productive meeting, and it's been a partnership that's really benefited Springfield. And some of the team had never seen the DeBerry Swan, and they were just
Yeah.
wowed by the project and how successful it was. So that went really well.
And
Mayor, can
nature cooperated with you and gave you a nice rainy day for the tour of Helena.
That's right.
Yeah, we were able to point out some of the,
Can I ask one
some of the
question?
issues with the water.
Those pumps run
White
24/7.
and Washington are the two schools that you're talking about?
White, Washington, and Kensington.
Kensington.
Right, so they're all 100 years old?
They're in the vicinity of 100 years old.
But, you know,
That's why they're on our list.
so
Yep.
Horena's number one on the list, but we figured when, again, they had reached out, new executive director, Mary Pichetti, hey, we want to come, the executive meeting with your internal team, so we put those out. Now, we've sort of become the master, and a lot of those schools you mentioned are right in the same district. So, we had told them, in Horena, make
Well,
a deal.
White and Washington, that would work, right?
Right,
White and Kensington would work.
And
Washington would combine, I think, with Beal, with an addition on Beal.
Yeah.
Because it's the same target neighborhood, and that way you'd get some leverage there.
It's all
with
within
those
walking
schools.
distance, and we
Yeah.
told them, besides the financial capacity to do it for that, we could lead the way again. If you give me that, and let's make a deal here. But we'll combine the schools like we've done with Lincoln and Brightwood, and
Yeah.
like we've done with DeBerry Swan very successfully,
Yeah.
because they're right in the same area. So, I think we have some good headway on Horena, and we threw on the table, how about we put this in the mix too?
Horena became, their two priorities would be the aging buildings like White and Washington, but failing systems. And clearly, the systems are failing at Horena. So that
Right.
becomes a target priority for MSBA and goes to the height of the list. And so that's why they were looking at that project too.
Well, that's good.
Yeah, very positive.
So would the location of Helena change?
It couldn't be built on the
We
present
can't-
site.
Right.
You can never build on that.
Right.
Yeah.
So
But
is
it would
there
stay in the
a
north end.
designated location?
We'd look for a location in the north end, and we've been doing that, yeah, yep. It would be in the north end, but you're never on that present site.
Correct.
We'd want to be above the water table and
Yeah.
not below highways and roads and everything else. Oh, sorry. So, no other questions on the Wall School. There's a piece in your packet on that. They got
was great today.
recognized today as a world leader in
Kids were
project-based
great.
learning. And very impressive what they've done through our Portrait of a Graduate work with a project-based learning. So real progress there of not only Portrait of a Graduate planning, but the implementation. That's-
Superintendent, what can I just say, I was at that event, and the kids were excited because they were having fun while they were learning on life-type things, and how their schooling indicated they had subject, tiny houses, this, the environment, and the kids spoke. They got up and said, boy, because we learned here, we had fun, and now we learned why it's important to learn these skills, because we can solve problems. So it was great, and they were I think last year was a school in Queens, in New York. This year we're the only one in the nation. Well, it was great. The kids were great.
Very encouraging, and Vinnie Regan and the team of teachers and the students there have done a fabulous job with this implementation, but in every other way. We also, the state announced 66 schools of recognition in the Commonwealth based on the MCAS. We're just getting the MCAS results now, and Springfield had 3 of those schools, so very proud of those schools and their teams. Over 90% criterion reference target percentage with the accountability system they're putting back in now. So really tremendous level. So those schools are Milton Bradley. I'd like to congratulate Kristen Hughes and her team, Brookings, Terry Poe and her team, and Glickman, Liz Benya and her team. We had a lot of schools make progress, a lot of schools have high ratings, but these were over 90% when you look at scaled scores, chronic absenteeism, which is a huge challenge right now. So those are incredible results, very positive. Overall, we had more improvements than the state, again, overall, and have been able to narrow the gap. We're going to give you a detailed report on that in the next few meetings. U.S. News and World Report recognized best schools in Massachusetts and in the country, recognized Renaissance High School, ranked 95th in the state and in the top 10% in the country. And they talked about the AP, the graduation rate, the great work going on at that school, so congratulations to the staff at Renaissance School. There's an article in your packet about Central. I always proud when we can go out and beat teams like Central Catholic that are regional teams that recruit from a region, and we had them come in and beat them 44-26. But what's more important than winning on the field is the freshman quarterback has already got a full scholarship offer to BC. Yeah. So it's these scholarship offers that these kids are getting that I think are more important than the athletics and opportunities they have that are exceptional.
Mayor, could I just say one thing?
Sure.
I just think it's great what Central is doing and with
Fabulous.
their football team. And
Fabulous.
I've seen this kid play football, and he also played basketball too. And he's a tremendous athlete, and he's I think he's 8th or 9th grade, right?
Just starting 9th grade.
Right. So he's just getting started, and he's.
Yeah.
He's going to be one of many that are going to get Division I scholarships.
And some get Division I, others are getting Division II, but they're going on to college, and it's all very positive.
Not everybody has to go Division
Right.
I. It's just to get kids a college education. It's great. I mean, it's tremendous what they're doing.
You just have the baseball play. The Ramos kid is going to Vanderbilt University.
I saw that.
How
Yeah.
was it?
Yeah.
Top
Vanderbilt is a beautiful school.
Engineering school in the country, and we're redoing a brand-new baseball fields going in there. I was by Duggan today to Ted Plum Field. The lights are up. The construction's going on there, so we continue to invest in youth development projects. But I think what you said, Murph, at Superintendent Warwick, you parlay that. So, hey, you're excelling on the field, off the field, you're getting a college education. Hey, maybe you make it to the big time. Maybe you don't, but you're going to have that education.
Yeah.
That's going to move it.
No, it's a gateway to success for a lot of kids.
And last, there's a contracts report. If you have any question on the contracts, you can contact Pat Roach, right?
Thank you, Superintendent Ward. Any other questions or comments, Superintendent's report?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, Mr. Gonzalez.
Yes, I just wanted to thank you and the superintendent on the work towards Harena. I think it's very near and dear to a lot of folks' heart. There's been some work in the North End community to beautify that building as best as possible. Now you have, drive by Bernie Avenue, the cultural birds that got up the front of the building, even the Harena Main Street entrance with some beautiful murals, but we all know that Harena needs a new home. So I want to thank you both on that. And the second piece is I wanted to see about the busing contract, Superintendent. I know there's been some issues, and I know I've certainly been lambasted with several, correspondences from constituents on this matter for the busing. So I don't know if there's a way for us to get an update
No
on
question. Latonia and I already talked about that. We're scheduling a subcommittee and a committee meeting, and we're bringing in first student on the contract. And Pat is to the point now where we're going to start implementing fines when they have drivers out. They're having a rash of drivers out and then combining routes, and it's causing trouble. So we're working on that. But we'll have subcommittee meetings on that and give you a full report out on that.
Oh, okay, that'd be great.
It's a
And
cause
that's
of concern. And Latonia and I have already talked about that, yeah.
And that superintendent and vice chair, could we get like a summative in terms of how they're performing in comparison of where they're supposed to be performing at with the tenets of their contract? I think that's important just to look at that piece.
School Committeeman Gonzalez, there's clawbacks in it. I mean, this is a national phenomenon with the bus drivers, but the company knows that, and yet they have to take proactive measures. So now it's gotten to the point in time where the superintendent and vice chair Naylor, we're going to call them in.
We're going to call them in. We're going to put a fire under them, but we've been working hard putting a fire under them. Yeah. We have contractual provisions built into the contract for fines for when the buses are late or they're doubling up, and we're going to start instituting those fines. We did give them the first couple of weeks because this is a national crisis and a state crisis. We're trying to be somewhat reasonable, They told us over the summer they had enough drivers. We checked with them several times. But when they opened the year, they didn't have enough drivers to cover the drivers that are out sick. So they weren't completely honest with us this summer. And they have to be held accountable for it. And we're going to meet with them, and we're going to hold their feet to the fire on it, because we've been getting the same complaints.
Yeah, thank you for your sensibility on this, Superintendent, Vice Chair Naylor, and the other colleagues. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Gonzalez. Any other questions of the superintendent? Hearing none, unfinished business? Hearing none, new business? Hearing none, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
So moved.
Motion made, Patty, by everybody. Is there a second?
Second.
Say, everybody seconds it. Roll call vote is required. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Ms. Hurst?
Yes.
Attorney Murphy? Absent. Mr. Gonzalez?
Yes.
Mr. Collins?
No.
You like doing that, Chris. I know you do.
Ms. Gresham?
Yes.
Ms. Monroe Naylor?
Yes.
Mayor Sarno?
Yes, board is official votes, matter passes. Good evening, and thank you for watching. Good health and God bless.
Cold. Am I cold?